Welcome back to Post-Traumatic Thriving. We're in episode 2, the dive stage. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Tanya Brown.
Hi, Randy. Oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So
what do you think of our guest, Jessie? Buttafuoco.
Me? you got it. You got it. No, this is
maybe by episode 4.
This is absolutely incredible. I love your energy, her energy. This is just going to be an amazing episode. This one is going to be heavy. Brace yourselves, but there's going to be a lot of hope in this story.
Oh yeah, it's going to get real, people.
Yeah, and welcome back, Jessie. We're so glad you're here.
So
Thanks
excited.
for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about that day. What was the day? What was the exact day?
The day was May 19th, 1992.
That's Nicole's birthday.
And it's Nicole's birthday. We have a lot of random similarities with our stories.
Whoa,
Like literally
wow.
Yeah.
So Amy Fisher showed up on your doorstep on Nicole Brown Simpson's birthday.
Yes, but apparently she showed up on our doorstep a few times before that because she was actively stalking my mother for 6 months.
Really?
Yes, really.
Okay.
How did Amy Fisher come about? Let's kind of maybe start there, huh?
just it's
Who is she?
It's the spotlight's on you.
Yeah.
Tell us the story the way you want to tell it.
Excellent. So, May 19th, 1992, Amy Fisher came to my front door, knocked on the door, talked to my mother for a few minutes. And as they were wrapping up their conversation, my mom went to turn inside and Amy pulled out a gun from her pocket and aimed it at my mother's head. And it went in on her right ear. The bullet shattered a bunch of stuff and wound up at the base of her spine. But before that happened, Amy Fisher was in I don't know if you want to call it relationship with my father. Amy Fisher was a working prostitute, had been for a while, had a madam, had all that kind of stuff, like had a pager in high school. And in the 1992, the only people who had pagers were doctors and hookers.
Wow.
She had one.
Wow.
I didn't even know that.
And she was 17 years old.
Not to legitimize her, but yeah. And so even that fact alone, and we can get into that later because it's not even necessarily about her and her trauma and her story, but how a 16-year-old becomes a prostitute in a rich, wealthy neighborhood in Long Island, New York is problematic to me.
Yeah.
Why that was never an issue is also problematic to me.
Yeah.
I have a feeling because all the New York cops at the time and judges were on her black book roster. And she was probably servicing a lot of people as well. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
but I can't prove that, so don't sue me.
But it makes sense.
And so I think I know because it's been adjudicated and it's in a testimonial like documents for when she was in jail on another incident. She was abused by her father sexually. And so she comes from her own set of trauma that I can never understand or realize. So by the time she met my father, it was a disaster waiting to happen. My dad, like I said in the last episode, larger than life character, fun, big, strong guy, funny. He was everything she wanted, either in a father or in a partner.
Okay.
And so anyone that's going to get in her way of that, she was going to take out. And so that's when I think the obsession with my mother started. Whether or not they had, my dad and her had a long relationship or a one-time deal, I don't know. My father had a sex addiction. She's not the only hooker that he's been with. And so much so, I mean, he's been jailed for, that's episode 49, soliciting a prostitute. Like his cocaine addiction led to a sex addiction that led to this traumatic day. And so by the time I think, she just got obsessed with my mother. And so she hired or tried to hire multiple people in her circle to take my mom out first. There were incidents of she hired people to stalk my mother and myself and my brother, get our schedules, our routines, where we go to school, what time we get picked up, dropped off.
She was stalking all of the family, including you.
I didn't know it at the time.
Oh my God. I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And so, and we recently, a couple of years ago, did an ABC 2020 special, and that brought to light one of the people that she had hired to do the job. She paid him in, cash and blowjobs. But basically there was one particular time that rattles me, to be honest, where Amy hired other people to do it and they chickened out, right? They just took the cash and ran.
When you say do it, to murder your mother.
Right. There was one incident where I was at school. My mom was painting in the kitchen. And when she went to the restroom, someone shot a bullet through our front window and it wound up lodged in our living room wall.
Oh my God.
And the cops came and they were like, oh, it's just neighborhood kids. Like it was chalked up to nothing. No one investigated. It wasn't a thing at all. And we were like, thank God my mom went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, we were just like, wow, you know, someone, but it was like a straight up like 22 like gun. This wasn't a BB gun. This wasn't a water balloon. You know, this was someone
A gun.
pointed a gun at our front window and shot through it, and it wound up lodged in our wall.
Okay.
Wow.
I want to get into all that, but the question I'm dying to ask you, when this all went down, because we know Amy Fisher showed up at the front door of your home, and it was in Long Island still. Somehow I had it in my head, it was in New Jersey, but it sounds like I'm wrong on that. But Amy Fisher showed up on Long Island with a gun, shot your mother. Where were you when this happened?
I was at school. I tend to always be at school when she came.
Okay.
But you know what? She visited our house in October, the day after Halloween, with selling candy, and I put that in air quotes, for Massapequa High School fundraiser, in an attempt to lure my mother out of the house because she had someone waiting on the side in the bush with a gun.
Oh my God.
But my mother didn't go outside. She actually brought Amy Fisher into our house while she went and got her purse, gave her $2 for the Snickers because she was like, hey lady, will you buy this candy, please? And my mom's like, it's the day after Halloween. I got enough candy for the world.
She showed up the day after Halloween?
Yeah. My mom's
so
like,
she wasn't a very smart
out to my mom because she's like, who is this kid selling candy the day after Halloween? And then when she left, she turned over the Snickers bar and it said like Ralph's $2.99. So it was recently bought from a supermarket, but you know, it was just a ruse to try to get my mom out of the house to murder her.
Gotcha.
And for Angels didn't let that happen that day. And my mom, when she turned it over, she's like, that kid stole from me. And she was going to go outside to confront her. But by the time that happened, she was
already gone.
She got in her getaway car. She bounced, she left. She was like, what? That was weird. But again, random.
So
that
your
was
story,
October.
You were in school, but before this all happened, when your mother was shot in the face, and I think everybody knows she survived her injuries, but, and you're at school, had you ever heard anything about Amy Fisher or anything about this, even though she was stalking you, she was stalking your mother? Had you heard anything about anything?
Nope. Never saw her, never met her, never heard her name. To this day, I've still never met her or seen her in person. She just exists on this like digital media platform, like a Disney villain to me. It's kind of strange. But yeah, no, I never met her, never saw her, none of that. So by the time May 19th came, I mean, October to May, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, that's 7 months. So this girl has been stewing for a long time. So by the time she got to, she's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And so that was the day, May 19th at 10:30 in the afternoon.
Okay. And
like it wasn't even lunch yet.
And the other question I got for you, Jessie, is it sounds to me that even though the relationship might have started as your father hiring a high school hooker, which is kind of unbelievable, it had transitioned from a kind of a business transaction to an emotional attraction, at least from her perspective. Am I accurate in that?
That's what I seem to think. Because honestly, I think just with her own, abuse and trauma, like everything was set up to latch on to something that she wanted and that she was going to take out anybody in her way. Yeah. It's kind of the vibes I get.
It was the daddy figure, the father figure, right?
Yeah.
And then prostitution, right?
All this save me, take me out. And then when she saw how lovely our life was, she goes, I want that. I want to be that.
She wanted to replace your mother with herself.
I think so.
As a 17-year-old girl.
Yeah. I believe that.
Delusional.
Yeah.
Okay. And did your dad on that day that happened, did he share in the sentiment that I want to be with this person, romantically?
Absolutely not. First of all, my father's a sociopath and a narcissist with a sex addiction. So he does whatever the fuck he wants, when he wants to do it, with who he wants to do it.
He's a doozy.
For him, he was not he had it all. He had a beautiful wife, amazing children, a nice house, a boat. Like, he's not as stupid as he is. He's not that stupid. Okay. I don't think he did this with so
this is a one-way. This is a one-way deal.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so, I've heard the story told now from my mother. I've heard it told from my father. I've heard it told from my uncles and my aunts, because my dad is one of 5 and my mom is one of 5. So when this tragedy happened, Aunt Ann came to pick me and my brother up from school. Aunt Eileen went here. My Uncle Bobby went here. Everybody was involved. This was before cell phones. So this was an old school, like the way it all, my grandmother who worked at the church on like the corner, remembers hearing all these sirens and all these fire trucks going towards her daughter's house, but not thinking it was for her daughter.
Yeah.
Until she got a phone call 15 minutes later and says, Mary Jo's been shot. She goes, what? What's she doing in Brooklyn? Like, it didn't compute for our family. And so they also didn't know this was a 16-year-old girl that did this at the time. So
she was 16? I thought she was 17.
I mean,
16, 17.
16, 17.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I am 16 going on 17.
Okay.
You know, she's not dancing in a gazebo with Ralph. She's a little bit more than that. But so, it was chaos because they just thought this murderer was on the street. No one understood why. Mary Jo, she's the nicest person in the neighborhood. And so home base wound up being my dad's auto body shop. So my aunt came to pick me up from school, and it was early, and it was a big day for me because I had ridden my bike for the very first time to school, and that was like a rite of passage at the time. And it was like, my mom was teaching me how to use a bike lock earlier, and like, you have to be responsible, like this was a big day for me to prove my responsibility. And it was also the same day that we were having auditions for the school play. And like, I'm a musical theater, like I was about to, like, this was my day, and then before lunch, it all came piling down, and I had to leave early before the auditions, and my aunt came, and I was like, what's going on? Wait, I need my bike. I can't leave school without my bike. Mom's going to kill me. And my aunt's like, fuck the bike.
Right.
And so, but like, I was being so like, mom's going to kill me if I don't take care of this bike, not realizing my mom's dying in a hospital.
Yeah.
But like, she's like, fine. And we got the bike. We threw it in the back of a Lincoln Continental, and we went to my dad's shop. And when I got there, the decision was made for all the grownups not to tell me what happened. Everybody else knew but me, including my brother, who's 3 years older than me. And so he was in 6th grade at the time. I was in 3rd grade. But usually when my family gets together, it's Christmas, it's Easter, it's birthday, it's barbecue, it's happy, it's fun, it's a lot, it's Italian food, it's intense. And I was 9, bless you, baby. But bless you, honey. When I got to my dad's shop and the whole family was there, and everyone's in like this main lobby kind of room looking like I've never seen before. Vacant, confused, shell-shocked, scared. All I know is my mom wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. And, before I get to this part, I think it's important to say too, I've talked to my uncle who has described the scene because my dad's work was only 15 minutes away from our house. And so when my mom was shot, there were 2 people working at the beach next door who happened to be retired police and firefighters. And so by the grace of God, they heard the shot and they came running over and they saw my mom lying down. They thought she was laying out on a red blanket, like sun tanning, but it was her a pool of her own blood. And they knew how to stop the bleeding. They knew what to do. Like, they weren't just some guys off the street. These were, New York, NYPD, NYFD, trained, retired, people that came and helped her. There. And then the neighbor across the street heard it and came out and thought she was laying on a red blanket, saw what's going on. So he wound up calling 911. They wound up calling my dad's shop and say, Joe, you got to get home. Something's not good. Get home now. And my grandfather was like, you need to go. Take your brother. Let's go. And sent his 2 boys to my house. And when they pulled up, my uncle describes it. He goes, I thought it was a parade because there were so many cops and so many fire trucks that, that's when you see it. When you see just a parade. Yeah. And apparently when my uncle and my dad got to the scene, they were just about to load my mom into the helicopter to take her life flight, her out of there, which they landed on the beach next door. And I guess they were kept, my dad and my brother, my dad and my uncle, they tell the story. They were running to the helicopter, running. And like 6 New York police officers tackled my dad because he's the husband and they don't know what's going on. And he's trying to go see his wife, but he had some like superhuman Hulk strength. And so he's just running down, and like, even the New York Police Department joked, they're like, we got sand in our boots because he was just dragging us. It was like he was just so much strength in times of stress like that. Yeah, I don't think he wound up making it to the helicopter, but because all the cops went on my dad, my uncle wound up being able to get to the helicopter and see my mom right before she was being airlifted. And I'll never forget his face when he told me this. He's like, her face was blown off, like it was. To see that scene, it's got to be, so intense. And so by the time I get to them, you know, they've been dealing with this for a couple hours now. I got to my dad's work and everybody was just, confused, blank face, like what's going on? Who did this? You know, what's going on? No one knew. And they had told me that my mother, they didn't tell me actually what happened to her quite yet. All I know is I was sitting on my aunt's lap at like the receptionist desk.
The receptionist desk where?
At my dad's work. It was a family business. So everyone in the family.
So everybody's still there.
Yeah. So just so I have your chronology, you're at school, your aunt shows up, get in the car, get the bike in the car, and they drive to your dad's
It was a family auto body business. So my grandpa owned it. My dad worked there. My uncle worked there. My aunt worked there. It was like everybody's worked in auto body.
I knew your dad worked there, but I didn't realize it was a family business.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So you're there with a lot of family surrounded.
Both sides.
And what were you being told? At that time, what were you being told?
So I wasn't necessarily told anything besides mom's hurt. We need to go. And I'm very intuitive. I pick up on a lot of stuff and I could tell what they were telling me was not everything, but I could also tell that this was not the time to say, why?
They were protecting you.
Yeah.
And they're in shock too.
Yeah. Tell a 9-year-old, you know? And so like the first thing that happened, I remember I was sitting on my aunt's lap and everyone looks nuts. And I just am picking this up. And sorry, I see a camera. I have to smile at it. And so I'm picking up the vibe, and my role is to alleviate stress. If there's something's uncomfortable, I crack a joke. That's just kind of my nature. It always has.
Yeah.
And so I say in front of everyone in a silent moment, I said, "What's the matter with everybody? It looks like someone got shot in the head or something."
Oh no!
I said those exact words, and everyone went whoosh to me, and my aunt yelled at me. She said, "Who told you that?" And I was like, I got the vibe I said something wrong, and I was, nobody. I was just making a joke. Y'all seem like something's up, and I was just trying to be funny. And it turns out they wound up telling me that she was painting in the backyard. She wound up falling off the bench that she was standing on, and her head fell on a nail that was sticking up on the ground. And I was like, that's fine. I stepped on a nail last summer. Like, can I go see her? Like, that's not that bad. But they wouldn't let me visit her. And they told me it was because they don't let children into the hospital. And so I could just tell people were lying to me. Yeah. And to this day, I have a real big problem with people lying to me. And it's because directly related to this, because then once they did tell me the truth, I was like, so how long were you going to lie to me? What if she died? Is this what you were going to go to the grave? Like, guys, I'm a part of this family too. I can handle it. Yeah. And like, it was this battle of like, I'm the youngest, I'm the baby, they're protecting me. But at the same time, like, I can handle this shit that's going on. What's going on?
Okay. So let me recap, because this is really fascinating. You're 9 years old. Your mom's been shot in the head by Amy Fisher. You're taken by your aunt on your dad's side. Is that right?
Yeah. My godmother.
Okay. So your aunt on your dad's side takes you to the family business where your dad works and your other relatives on your dad's side.
And my mom's side.
Oh, and your mom's side.
Everybody wound up there.
Oh, is that right?
They weren't at the hospital. They were at the auto body shop.
Okay.
Yeah. They were very close families. They lived in the same neighborhood. Like my aunts and my uncles were, knew each other since 15.
Okay.
So they were in the neighborhood. Everybody knew the Buttafuoco kids at the church, the Connery girls. So it was like a thing.
Okay. So both your mom and dad's side were in the family business auto body shop. You're there and they start BSing you and telling you this concocted story that your mom fell off a ladder and hit a board with a nail in it. Right. And you're sitting there picking up the vibes, even as a 9-year-old.
This is pretty serious for a nail.
Yeah.
And you're, they just kind of, I don't know what's the right word, but kind of diminishing your capabilities of figuring things out, thinking that they can successfully BS you and telling you stories. They're in shock. I get the reasons. I don't agree with the reasons, but I get the reasons. Yeah. And in the meantime, you're the little girl sitting there scared because you love your mom. You're hurt. You know she's hurt.
Right.
Your families must be acting goofy on both sides of the family. And you're trying to make sense of it all. You're cracking jokes. Your aunt gets mad at you, but they're BSing you, and you sense that as a kid. Do I have that right?
100%.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I the story's about you, but I got to interject. When I was not told till I was 9 years old that I had to have open heart surgery. I saw a cardiologist every year, but I was always just like, I just thought it was normal. And it wasn't normal.
Yeah.
And one day my mom slipped. She was sitting on the couch, and, you know, our home overlooked Disneyland. You know, you were by the beach, we were by Disneyland. And my mom said, you know, Randy, there's a story in the LA Times about a guy who had the same heart surgery you're going to have. And he's bowling today. And I thought, as a 9-year-old kid, I thought, what's so miraculous about a guy bowling? What's wrong with me?
Right.
You know,
Right.
you know, and I was BS'd. Not so much like I was told a concocted story, but it was omitted.
Right.
I wasn't being told the truth.
Right. And that's I get why, because they're trying to protect us.
Yeah.
I don't think they can handle us, but I think kids know.
Yeah.
Little kindergartens.
They know.
Yeah.
You know,
They know.
know.
Yeah.
So I want to
Intuitively.
pause right. I want to hear the whole story. This is going to be most thorough examination of your story ever happened.
I'm into it. Because
Okay.
y'all are asking questions too that other people and other productions I've been a part of don't ask. And I think it's because of your mental health backgrounds.
Yeah.
And also just, you know, I don't know. Y'all are doing good. Keep
Okay.
going.
Okay.
Good,
Well, we're going to
good.
keep the
Glad
party
so
going.
Juicy.
Yeah.
No, I guarantee you will feel thoroughly searched and deposed by the end of this.
Oh, that was a funny thing. That's episode 5, how I learned what a strip search was.
It's
Visiting my dad in
G-rated, Randy.
jail.
It's G-rated.
Yeah, G-rated. We won't strip search you, but we will
That
depose
was
you.
a good story.
No, I'm just teasing. But okay, here's
This is
what I
fascinating.
want to pause. Is that in your trauma, my trauma? I mean, Tanya, you were told the truth about your trauma.
I was older. I was
but
24.
we were both kind of BS'd.
Yeah.
My mom's 99, believe it or not. It's still in my childhood home. I love her. I've forgiven her. But let's talk about what should have happened. What should your aunt, and I'm not saying your aunt did anything wrong, because your aunt probably didn't get the right
They didn't
conversation.
They're
you
also
know.
old school Italian Catholics that doesn't know how to handle trauma either, or talk about things.
Yeah.
Like,
Bury
if
it.
something happens, you just don't talk about
Yeah.
it.
Got
you
it.
know?
Yeah.
So it's like,
Got it.
yeah.
You bury
But
it.
we've evolved. We've evolved, and we know better today.
Right.
So let's share with each other and the audience what should have happened when you're dealing with a kid with trauma in a traumatic situation. What is the right way to handle it, so that you don't walk away like you did saying, hey, my own aunt BS me, and my own mom and dad, you know, omitted kind of important facts I should have been told. What should those conversations look like?
Because guess what? That rocked my ability to trust people
Boom.
from that point on.
There you go.
So if they had at least been even vaguely honest,
Yeah.
rather than feeding me like blatant bullshit, it
Yeah.
probably would have been more helpful for my ability to trust others.
Right.
Plain and simple.
This is really interesting, and I don't think I've ever even shared this before. When the kids were brought down, I think. Okay, so Nicole, we found out on a Monday that Nicole was killed. She got killed on Sunday. Monday or Tuesday, the kids were brought down from LA, and my mom sat the kids down on our piano bench and knelt down and told them so eloquently and so beautifully, Mommy's not coming back. She's in heaven. And it was like, but then after that, we didn't tell them what was going on. We didn't communicate with the kids. The TVs were off. So as you're saying this, I'm like, wow, that could, you know, be the reason why some of the things that they've experienced in their life is because we didn't expose them. We didn't communicate with, you know, what was going on, because, you know, why expose such trauma to a child? So this kind of like hits home with me.
Wow.
And you know what? I got to be honest. I've always related to Sydney and Justin because we are these random
in
young,
the same age.
Exactly.
Same age.
All of that. And just, it's remarkable to hear how your mother was so gentle with
Oh
us.
my God.
So gentle.
But you know what? There's something to that because I was exposed to all of it. I watched the news. I watched Saturday Night Live when Danny DeVito's playing my dad. I watched all that stuff. So maybe that's what fucked me up a little bit more than the average there too. But it's so interesting to hear that part of your story.
Yeah.
Because I've always wondered. You know, I wonder how they handled it. I wonder what's going on in their
And
house
my mom had said, and God bless her soul, but she said, maybe if we would have gotten the kids, they never sought therapy. They did one time with a therapist here in Dana Point. He was absolutely awful. And after that, it was like, okay, I think he's messing the kids up more.
I had the same experience.
Same thing.
I sat there like this.
Yeah.
Go play recess. I want to talk to you right now.
They were more interested in like the case and everything instead of like their mental well-being. Right. And then after that, and after that, it was like, we didn't put him back into therapy. And then we didn't have, again, like I told you, the TVs were off. We didn't talk about it. We would go to court. We'd come home. We'd go to the beach, create some sort of normalcy. Right. So, maybe perhaps had we, like what my mom said, maybe if we would have told them, things would have turned out a little bit different.
Wow.
And they're doing great. Sydney had a baby. Justin's having a baby. Lovely. They're in great relationships. Yeah. But there were things along the way, between then and, 36, 37 years old that now, as we're having this conversation, makes sense.
Well, let's pause on your parents, what they did, because there's an example of the right way to do it. Because I had the privilege of knowing both your parents. I can't even put into words how much love and respect I have for both of them. And they, no surprise, exemplified exactly the right thing to do. Don't lie. Don't BS.
Yeah.
Don't omit, the harsh reality. I could have handled it as a kid. You probably could have handled it. Mom's been hurt in the head. We don't know what's going on. She's in the hospital. We'll let you know. That would be all truthful.
Right. Yeah. And
you would not have wound up with a better word, a kind of a complex over this, people being honest to you. Your parents, no surprise, did exactly the right thing. They told the truth at an age appropriate, in an age appropriate way.
But telling the truth in that mommy's not coming back, but we didn't expose them to how mommy died, what happened to mom. We didn't share any of that.
Telling the truth doesn't mean you tell
the details.
Particularly at a time where it's utter chaos and confusion.
Right. Yeah.
But if your mom were to set them down, she's in Hawaii. She'll be back next week.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
She was in Hawaii.
Yeah.
It's
your dad
lying.
Joey's at Disneyland when he's really, in cocaine rehab.
Right.
There's kind of a theme here.
Yeah.
Your family's, this wonderful Italian Catholic fun family, but when it comes to these uncomfortable topics, there's some BS going on.
We're going to avoid it.
Yeah. Dad's at Disneyland.
And I grew up with those notes for a long time.
Okay.
That's how I learned how to shut down emotionally and just be fine. Be fine.
And we all know what FINE stands for.
Oh, what?
Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
There you go. That's it. It's true.
Here I've been studying trauma for 15 years and I just learned this.
Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
It's true. It's all of those.
And when you say to the world that I'm fine, really, that's what you're saying to the world. Effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Okay, there's something to memorize. There's a fun little acronym for folks. We all need to learn.
You got them good.
Wow. Okay. So
That's
focusing on you that day, you're in the parents' body shop or your family's body shop. You're being BS. You're sensing it. The family's actually getting mad at you for inappropriate jokes where that doesn't make sense because you're just a little kid.
Right.
Give me a break. What happens next to you?
So then afterwards, I couldn't go home for 2 weeks because it was an active crime scene and paparazzi started showing up. And so I got
what were you being told at that time when you did, where did you go?
I went to my uncle's house.
Okay.
Where with my little cousins and wound up sleeping there. It felt like an eternity. Could have been a day or two.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And what were you being told?
All I know is I wasn't allowed to go back to school. I wasn't really being told much. I was just,
Did you see the paparazzi or exposed to any of that? Not yet.
Because I was only at my uncle's house, which was a safe haven. But while my younger cousins went off to school, I was like, why can't I go to school? I wasn't allowed at school. And I was like, but the play is about to start and I'm going to be cast as James and James and the Giant Peach. Let's go. But I wasn't allowed back at school. I wasn't allowed back at home. And I remember, I guess my dad had packed my overnight clothes and like a bag of clothes. And this is when I really started to miss my mom because when I had to change into my pajamas that first night, it was my absolute least favorite pair of pajamas. 3 sizes too small, button up the front. So when you have to pee in the middle of the night, it's cold. And I just remember being like, Mom would have packed me the pajamas I like. Dad packed my bag. And it was just like, and it started to be like, Mom would have done it like this.
But where's Mommy? Yeah.
Because like I wasn't allowed to see her. And, talking about her, it was so chaotic. And so I think it was just play Nintendo. Shh, don't ask questions.
Stay busy.
Go play with your cousins, stay busy.
Did your cousins, they were the same age as you?
They were younger than me. So
and they didn't know what was,
they were like 6 and 3.
They didn't know what was going on.
No.
So all you kids were kept in ignorance.
Kept in the dark. My brother was told and aware of things.
Was he there in the same home?
He was expected to keep it quiet from me and lie to me too, which was really hard for him, I think.
Yeah.
He would visit her. He'd go to the hospital. And actually, there's a lovely story. My mom was in a coma. My brother, I guess, went and held her hand, and my mom squeezed it and cried in a coma. And so, like, knowing, like,
that's
she
power.
To this day says, when she got shot, she was thinking about my brother and I. And like, I need to get up. The kids are coming home from school. I need to get up. The kids are coming home from school. So she's like a mom through and through.
Yeah.
But I remember being jealous. I'm like, how come Paul gets to go visit her? How come I can't go visit her? I thought you said children aren't allowed in the hospital. I keep catching everyone in their lies. And then they didn't have.
They shut it down.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was just, probably days of me being relentless of like, someone's going to tell me what's going on around here.
So that must have been very frustrating.
It was extremely
frustrating. So there's layered trauma going on here. Number one, your mom's hurt. You know that.
Right.
She's in the hospital. You know that.
Right.
But you're sensing BS bombs going off left and right.
Yes.
And even your own brother, who's 3 years older, he's getting the privilege of some truth and reality. You're not. Mm-hmm. And something's up. Mm-hmm. What as a young little girl who loves her mom, who misses her mom, what's going through your mind as you're laying down in bed to go to sleep?
I mean, I think just fear and, worry. And I don't know, it's so long ago at this point too, I'm 39.
Sure. Okay.
I just remember missing her.
Yeah.
And I didn't see my dad that day either. And I didn't now the next day. And now I haven't seen my parents, but either one of them in 2 days, 3 days. I'm just with my uncle and my aunt, who are great and lovely, but like, where are my parents?
Yeah.
What's going on?
And did your dad show up to visit you?
No. And that's what's messed up.
I think we've crossed the line.
Exactly. It's all good. My dad packed my bag and dropped it off. And I remember being like, why didn't he come inside to see me?
So your dad's dropping stuff off with the wrong pajamas. He's not even coming to see how his daughter's doing.
And what's interesting is, and my aunt Ursula brought this up to me actually like last year when we were talking about it. Because he never told me what was going on either. I was given the news via a newspaper.
Oh, wow.
And a 9-year-old with ADD and reading comprehension, I get handed a newspaper from my aunt because I was just being relentless. And what do I tell her? What do we tell Jessie? What do we tell Jessie? My dad wasn't taking on that responsibility. Neither.
Your dad's not even visiting you.
Right. And so,
so there's abandonment too.
I mean, he's busy. It's not like he's kicking it on the beach, tanning with the Hawaiian tropic.
Right.
But he wasn't necessarily being a father in that moment either.
Right.
And so my aunt had handed me a newspaper that had a picture of our front house on it with crime scene tape and a cop car in front of it. Had a picture of my mom next to it. And the headline just said like local woman shot or something.
And your aunt just hands this to you.
Right. She's like, remember how we told you mom hit a nail? Well, it didn't really happen that way.
Oh, and just hands you a paper. Oh, my God.
Now, I have a diagnosed reading comprehension problem to this day. If I read something, I'm in my thoughts somewhere else. I'm not understanding what I'm reading. Okay. All I saw was my mom's picture. All I saw was the picture of my house that I was just playing on that tree on 3 days ago and I haven't been able to get back to. And pretending to read it because like I'm like, this is my job and this is what she told me to do, but like I don't understand what this shit is. And I just went like this and I put the paper down. She looked at me and she was like, do you understand, honey? And I was just like, no. And she finally was like, it wasn't a nail. Your mom was shot and she's gonna be okay, but she's really hurt and all that stuff. And so I think once I was kind of told the information, I was relieved because I was like, I fucking knew it. Like, it wasn't a nail. I knew it. It's more of like, aha, I've like, great. All right, let's go see her. Come on. Like I wasn't scared. I wasn't upset. Like also gun violence wasn't a thing in 92. Like I didn't know anyone that, like, there was one guy in the neighborhood that was a Vietnam vet with one leg from his injuries, but like no one else. School shootings weren't a thing. Massive shooting, like
nothing that didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it was, all right, great. Let's go visit her then. And so finally I was allowed to go to the hospital and visit her. And I personally do not have a memory of that. I've been told the memory of it from my aunts who were in the room as they let me in. I do remember them prepping me of like, mom's really hurt. Now is not the time to bring your tap shoes. You know, like, girl, now is not the time.
Brace yourself.
Right. Like this is not a joke. This is not Jessie be funny. This is not make people laugh. This is serious. Like, and just touching her might be a problem. And so I just remember when they, opened that door and I was holding my grandmother's hand and it was just creaking open, and
you're at the hospital.
Yeah. And I'm terrified at this point.
Yeah.
Of not just like
what to expect.
Right. You don't know. Yeah. And so when I went in there and I see her in a hospital bed and I had brought a stuffed animal to leave with her to try to make her feel better. And I just look and I'm like, who is that alien in the hospital bed? Because that is not my mother. Her whole head was wrapped just with gauze and her head was shaved off and she was blown up, swollen.
Yeah.
It looked like a Macy's Day Parade float. And her voice sounded like Kermit the Frog because the bullet nicked something. She had a trach tube in at one point. Like she was awake at this point.
Oh, she was conscious.
She was conscious at this point because she had woken up. And side story, when she woke up is when they found out Amy Fisher did it. Because my mom, though she couldn't talk, she had trach tubes in. She went like this, made the signal to like a hand signal, like give me a pen and paper. And on that yellow piece of lined paper.
Oh my gosh.
Did she know the name Amy Fisher?
Not Amy Fisher, but Amy had given my mother a fake name of Anne Marie. And so my mother wrote Anne Marie, 16 years old, t-shirt, I think, because Amy Fisher had brought a t-shirt from the body shop over and saying, your husband's sleeping with my little sister. And my mom goes, your little sister? How old are you?
Oh my God. Right.
And so my mom just kept being combative. I mean, I'm 38 now. If I opened my door to a 16-year-old who I teach 16-year-olds all the time, musical theater, I would not be intimidated or scared or nothing,
Sure. Right.
So my mom wrote this down because they were looking for a maniac dude on the loose, a guy, they had no. So
the cops are just totally in the dark, confused.
In the dark. And they were idiots back then. And I'll say that now, like I respect law enforcement, but the New York Police Department, Nassau County Police Department in particular in 1992, fucked this case up so hard. That's why she only went to jail for 8 years and wound up taking a plea for aggravated assault. So
wow,
that's a whole other story.
Okay,
not even attempted murder.
I'm in the hospital room. I see my mother looking like a Macy's Day float. She sounds like Kermit the Frog, and I remember just being on my best behavior, quiet, leaving her a stuffed pig animal that I had won at the fair not too long ago. But I don't necessarily remember any more than that. Apparently, my aunt has told me that once I kept it together in the room, like, okay, Mom, I love you. I'll be back to visit you. Like, I'm fine at 9. And as soon as I walked out the door, apparently I like collapsed and was like shaking and crying in my grandmother's arms and very physically affected. I have no memory of that at all.
You don't have a memory of, correct me if I'm wrong. Did I hear you right that you didn't have a memory of any of this visit? Or a little bit? Or?
I have like photographs. Like I remember seeing her blown up and I remember that part of just the visual, like I kind of have a photographic memory. So I have that, but the emotional breakdown part, I don't have.
You don't remember.
Okay, so let me ask you, is this, in this whole drama, this whole trauma is probably a better word, was this the moment of absolute shock for you where the reality where you've really kind of confronted I'm trying to identify kind of a point of shock.
So
where did the shock happen? Well, we'll get to
35 years old when I lost my mind.
Okay. All right. We'll get there.
17.
It bites you in the butt years later.
All right.
There was no time for that because it kept getting like my trauma started there, but it kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse every day, every year, every week.
So if you could, as a child, when this whole event went down, if you could identify like a moment, or maybe there isn't a moment, there's numerous moments, but you tell me, when did you kind of identify that something was very wrong and you were it kind of went into that, shock, because I want to talk about shock for a minute.
Well, I knew something was very wrong when I was sitting in my dad's office with my entire family before they told me it was wrong.
And you said something really interesting, because walking into your mom's hospital room and seeing her, as you described it, that's an alien, not my mom. That must have been, so, in fact, it obviously was so shocking. Your memory, even today, as a 38-year-old woman, is still unclear.
And you know what? I find so interesting that she was trying so hard to make it seem like she was fine. Hi, honey. How are you? You know, she's pilled up. She has a bullet to the brain. She had 50-50 chances of even surviving. And if that, what is she going to be like when she comes out of it? You know, deaf, blind, brain dead, who knows?
Right.
And I just remember her trying to alleviate my stress.
Okay.
That's a mom.
Okay.
Totally.
There's a reason why I'm kind of drilling down to that point, and I want to just talk about it for a minute. And I actually, knowing you were going to be our guest today, I brought this from my house, but this is the human brain, or a model of it. Okay. And I want to explain, and then we do this in the training in the prisons. So because we kind of take a time out to explain the physiology of what's going on.
I love that.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay.
Come into it, because it's
because this is trauma right here.
And it's trauma and it's out there.
And it is a science.
Right.
Yeah. So here's my very simplified, probably oversimplified lesson is people think we have a brain. Well, of course we do, but we actually have 3 brains. Have you heard this before?
The 3 brains? No.
Okay.
Limbic.
Well, you're getting more.
Those are the systems.
Like I just learned about this in class.
I forgot everything the second I got my diploma.
The limbic brain, which is our Neanderthal brain.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make it even simpler.
Okay.
We're going to really make this simple for everyone, because my IQ's not that high. So we have 3 brains. The outer brain is the human brain. That's where we have logic and conversation, and we have empathy for humans on the other side of the planet we've never met. That's the distinctly human brain. It's different than the animal brain, okay? Because Bambi's not walking through the forest thinking about prayer and being charitable to people on the other, other deer on the other side of the forest.
Right.
Okay, that's the human brain. We're distinctly human. So that's the outer brain. The middle brain is called the mammal brain. That's emotion. Okay. So that you can, dogs can snuggle up, mammals have emotions, but the third brain, the inner brain, is the reptilian brain.
I call it my Neanderthal brain.
Okay.
You want this now. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Cause it's an instinct. It's an instinctual, it's this reaction.
Right.
Okay. So what happened in your trauma is you're operating with your human brain. You're at school. You're just, doing what school kids do and learning stuff. And you rode your bike to school for the very first time. It's a big day to demonstrate to your family that you're responsible. That's all the kind of logic going on in the human brain. And of course, there's emotions with that too. And if there's all 3 brains are working at the same time. But what happens when the shock happens, when you get your aunt shows up at the school to say, hey, something's real wrong, screw the bike, get in the car, that your memories from the human brain basically turn off or are diminished greatly. And it goes to the reptilian brain. And that's the fight, flight, freeze response.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's why even as today, these memories, you said a few times, because I'm listening very intently to what you're saying for these kind of clues. The reason why the memory is distorted is completely normal, because you start thinking with the reptilian brain. And that's just, how do I survive? How does my mom survive? You're just going to that part of the brain that says, I just want to get through this, however the hell I have to do it to stay alive or to keep my mom alive. I'm detecting BS bombs from my family left and right. You're kind of going through a mental landmine of these bombs going off, of lies and deception and craziness. And you're just trying to survive. You're a 9-year-old kid. Those instincts are kicking in. Does that sound familiar and right? For sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I was stuck there for 30 years. I was stuck in fight or flight until I literally had a mental, physical, emotional breakdown and learned how to not operate in that mode.
Yeah.
But it started from that time. And then I was continued to stay there as, more chaos kept happening because, daddy went to jail. There was trials. There was, there's a whole bunch of other stories too.
Right.
There's a snowball that started with this one day. Absolutely.
Right.
But I was, I think, stuck in that reptilian, mindset for a very long time.
Right.
Very long.
Did you experience some sort of amnesia also? Because, with the trauma that, after Nicole, there are so many chapters during that time that I do not remember at all. Like people will go, yeah, don't you remember saying that? Or do you remember doing that? Or do you remember that was said? I'm like, I have no recollection of it.
Good question.
But there is something called, I don't know if it's like called retrograde amnesia, but there is a type of amnesia where you do where you do lose certain chapters of your life experience from that trauma.
I wonder because you were 25 when it all happened.
24,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's a difference between that 24-year-old brain experiencing trauma versus a 9-year one, because I don't necessarily have memory. Like there are certain blocks that just aren't there. But at the same time, there's some things that are just recalled. Yeah. And so I don't know, I wonder if I was from a young age stuck in that mindset versus if I was older. And that, was in a fight or flight. I'm not quite sure.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Something
to
ponder.
Well, and that's why it's so important, because in the San Quentin prison where I'm certified as a group volunteer person, we talk about the physiology, because, taking a time out and describing and explaining the physiology helps people process their trauma.
For sure.
Because here's the number one thing. And I'm sure I can tell you've already figured this out, but a lot of people are still working through traumas.
Yeah.
It's completely normal.
Oh, yeah.
What people are going through in terms of the hazy memory or the blocked memory and the confusion.
The fog.
It starts with shock. Okay. So, the 5 stages of grief don't include shock. I do, because it's so important we just talk about what's going on physiologically. Because it kind of gives it starts the healing process to realize, hey, I'm not a freak. I'm not abnormal. As a little girl who's going through this insane circus, media circus and family circus and everything else. And with my trauma, which did not make the newspapers, it didn't make, anything. I'm going through the same thing when my mom says to me on the couch, hey, there's surgery. And the first time I ever heard it, I had to have an open heart surgery, and the shock of realizing I don't get to spend the week, the summer at the beach. I mean, for a 9-year-old kid, that was shocking.
Huge.
It's life-altering.
That's huge.
News.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like, no, you can't have ice cream after dinner. This is your trajectory of your life is changed. And when it's thrown on you like that, in such a shocking way, I know for me, physiologically, sent me to an automatic anxiety attack, but I didn't know it until then. I didn't understand anxiety until I realized peace. I operated from 9 years old on at a level 100 fear and anxiety level.
Adrenaline.
Because also keep in mind now that I understand that my mom's been, shot, now this girl came. This girl could be my babysitter. What do you mean she's the one that shot? People aren't what they seem. I started to really spin out on my thoughts and fear of like taking out the trash was ultimate fear for me, because who's hiding in the bushes?
Oh, I could only imagine.
And like being alone, or if my, I remember this one time. Shortly after, I was going to be picked up by a neighbor friend and taken, to a haunted house or something random. And there was going to be a 10-minute window from when my parents left and I was home alone versus when these people were going to come to pick me up. And I was like, I can make it 10 minutes. We can do it. I'll be alone, but I'll be all right. I'll fine. That 10-minute mark hit. And this was my first ever panic attack. I didn't understand what was happening, but that 10-minute mark hit. Where are they? Where are they? And 11. Oh my God, what's going on? And physiologically, I started having.
Right.
I'm feeling it right now, actually.
Attack.
Yeah.
At 10, I didn't know. I don't know what this is. I'm freaking out. I'm crying. I'm trying to talk myself down. They'll be here soon. I'm calling them on the rotary phone. Where are you guys? But they're not here.
Right.
And eventually, when she came 17 minutes late, I was hysterical.
Oh.
What's wrong, honey? I couldn't explain it. It's like, what am I going to say? I'm alone? And that scared me. Like, duh. And then, because then I would be like, Jessica, you're being so stupid right now. What's going on? And I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to get sent to the nut house. And so I keep it all to myself. And, and then I finally would calm down. But I never understood that was a problem. I just thought that this is how people operate.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly. You had nothing to compare it to.
Right.
Yeah.
And so There was early level. And this was, I lived in a time where when I went to school, I was afraid someone was going to come through the window and shoot me. Now every child feels that way.
Yeah.
No one was feeling that way in 91. I know what that feels like. It's horrible.
Scary.
It's terrifying. I can't focus on what's going on the chalkboard because I'm literally worried that either a paparazzi's out there trying to take my picture or someone's going to come in and shoot me.
Well, so
constant
there's
fear.
so much there. And well,
let's get to the paparazzi.
Well, let's
when I got home.
We'll get to the paparazzi. We'll get to everything.
My God.
Guaranteed. But the key takeaway in this conversation for our audience is to understand this is what trauma looks like, completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to express to people that just recognizing that this craziness and your panic attacks, completely normal. That in and of itself is part of the healing process to realize I'm not, this is how the human brain works. The human brain is magnificent
complex
at survival. Okay. Our evolution, was a process of survival. It's not of thriving. We're going to get to that. That's abnormal. That's an abnormal stage to go from there to doing something phenomenal like you're doing now in your life. Mm-hmm. But we're in the dive stage and all this going on. So I want to kind of break it apart a little bit before we get to the paparazzi and ask you. So we've talked about shock. How about anger? Were you feeling anger?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I was
and who are you angry
Amy
about?
Fisher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
my dad at this point was not the villain.
Okay.
She was the villain that came into my life and messed everything.
Destroyed it.
So when did you first hear the name Amy Fisher?
Ooh, good question. I don't remember that.
Okay. And that's okay.
Not necessarily first.
And that's okay because that's part of trauma.
Right.
Right.
The memory is...
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were mad at Amy Fisher for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. She shot your mom in the head.
Right.
Who else were you angry with?
Nobody. Just her.
Just her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this might be another trauma response because of all this. I felt the need to be perfect and look fine at all times. And anger was not an emotion. I allowed myself to.
So it was internal anger. You weren't throwing furniture.
No, I've never been in a physical fight in my life. Okay. Still to this day, I think if it were faced, I could kick some ass.
Well, the day's not over.
I can be very strong with my words and intimidating with my presence, but I just anger was something I saved for sports. I made sure it was I was a terror on the basketball court. I was a terror on the lacrosse team. I'd be kicking everybody's ass. I had so much anger, but I got it out appropriately.
Yeah.
Because anger was not an emotion. Like when this all happened, the last thing my family needed was a problem.
Right.
Or something that wasn't just pleasant. Mm-hmm. And so I took upon myself to be perfect and happy and lovely and delightful at all costs, at all times of the day. Even if I physically inside didn't feel that way, I made sure to present on the outside.
Okay.
And I think what people don't really understand is that anger is it's a very healthy emotion. It's just like, okay, you're going to punch a wall, you're going to punch a person, or you're going to go exercise, go to the gym, lacrosse, swim, or whatever that is, right? But I want people to understand how important it is to feel anger, and process it and to be, have it be appropriate. But you also mentioned the 5 stages of grief.
Well, yeah.
So just quickly, when I coach people through grief counseling, it's like, okay, well, I was at stage 4, but now I'm back at stage 1. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross is very linear when really grief and trauma is a messy roller coaster.
I'm so glad you said that because my book has the 5 stages of grief as chapters, and we're going to go through each quote chapter, each step with your story. But I'm so glad you said that, Tanya, because the phrase I've come up with is rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. You think you're in the thrive stage, and then there's some days you revisit the anger and you're pissed about it. Yeah. Totally normal. And you hit the nail on the head. All of this is totally normal. And it's not linear. You're right.
It's a messy roller coaster.
It's tangled up.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So for example, like myself and some other people that I've worked with where it's like, oh my God, you know what I did today? I left my car running and the door was open and I spent 8 hours at work. it's like, that's okay. It's normal. Oh my gosh. Now I'm putting the milk in the cabinet. It's like, that's okay. It's like, right now it's okay. Because that's what trauma does, Yeah.
Great point.
Makes you do funny things.
Brought that up too, because I'm still in a process of healing and I'm making significant progress every day.
Yeah.
But there's certain times where I feel like I've maybe taken 2 steps back. And for me, the perfectionist side of me says, fuck it. Let's just forget it all that I've done. And it makes me almost want to stop and self-sabotage.
Yeah.
But then hearing something like that, like you're going to maybe take 2 steps back, but keep going. It's okay.
Exactly.
I think that's an important message for people to hear. Because sometimes people just go, oh, well, I tried. And then just self-destruct.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay. Well, you're saying things better than I have to go back and rewrite my book. Said some things better than I said.
There's
but you're
number
absolutely
2 going on.
No. So we talked about shock. We talked about anger. Couldn't agree with both of you. Bargaining. Did you bargain with the police, bargain with your family, bargain with anybody? Was bargaining part of your process?
I think I bargained with God a lot.
Okay. Great. Talk to us about that.
I think it was, if you just get my mom through this, I'll study hard and get an A on this test. If you get my dad not in jail, I'll do this. If you can help my brother not do drugs, I'll do this. It was a lot, I think, of bargaining that way because it was so out of my control.
Okay.
That I couldn't necessarily bargain with the players at hand because I'm a child and everyone else is an adult. But I felt like I could get some power with bargaining with God. And so when it went my way, in quotes, it made me feel powerful. Like, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I got this God
guy.
It's like now I have such a different, I don't use God in that way anymore. It's not about begging and asking and wishing.
Yeah.
It's more about thanking and
giving gratitude.
Right.
Yeah. Well said.
I think that was because I grew up in a Catholic family. I was, baptized, communion, altar girl, church choir. My mother is named after Mary and Joseph. It's the thing. Put that together. She went to Catholic school. But it's that Catholic God, right? It's that punishment God.
Doesn't get more Catholic than that.
Mary Jo.
Honestly. And
Mary Jo married after Mary. See,
like legit.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Even this is like a hopeful message for people. Like, after trauma, once you go through the process and you're healing, you find some sort of humor in it because this is really heavy.
You laugh or you cry, man.
Yeah, find it while you're going through it too. It doesn't just happen after. Humor got our family through a lot of this stuff.
Well, and that's a good message, in the words of great Led Zeppelin. Does anybody remember laughter? Does anyone remember laughter?
Yeah. And we had to, so when the paparazzi started coming and they'd do a live segment in front of our house, we'd be on the bed with my sick mother and my dad and my brother and I watching the live news. Look at our house, look at that. And my dad would go run over to the light switch and he'd go watch this and he'd turn the light switch off and the lights went off on the TV and then we turn it back on, the lights went on. We're watching the live news.
So you're playing a game.
Show. Right. We're making it fun. But then my aunt calls and she's like, I saw the lights flickering. What's the matter? Is it Morse code? Are you guys weird little moments like that? That even made us laugh because we're neurotic Ann. Of course she's worried. Of course she's watching the news and thinks this is Morse code for help.
That's funny.
We're just trying to have fun, make light of this.
We did that with Sydney and Justin, because the helicopters were all over our house and it ended up being, we did like Michael Jackson moments. Remember when he put the blanket over his kids, right? So that's what we do with the kids. Like, okay, come on, we're gonna hide, right? We made it a game, and being a kid, it's like my mom being in the war too, where the bombs are dropping, and it was like Battlestar Galactica or whatever it is, that game where it was like, oh, the bombs are coming, let's run, let's play a game, right? It's like it's a coping skill, and a defense mechanism, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're bargaining with God, you're not bargaining with your family per se. How about depression? Did that play into this?
Not until my 30s.
Really?
Not until episode 49.
Okay.
It runs in my family, my mother's side. I never understood it. I'd be like, just smile, get over it. That I never allowed myself to do that. There was no time for that.
Okay.
That would mean I'm not perfect. And that would mean, and so it didn't hit me until pretty much 30, 35.
So is it fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is it fair to say that kind of the Catholic perfectionist culture was kind of the preeminent thing? Keep the mask on in terms of
the facade.
More so than the Catholic part of it, I think it was just, I saw how big this was, meaning, the sea of paparazzi out front. My parents acting in certain ways, what it did to my family, what it did to our neighborhood. I saw the vastness of it. And so I just, wanted to not be a problem. I didn't want to add to anything.
So you just wanted to be a good kid.
Yes.
Keep the
You
peace.
just wanted to be a good
Keep
kid.
the peace, make people happy, joke, laugh, like that. That was my role. And so depression didn't fit in that.
Okay.
All
we'll
of that
get to that
stuff
then.
didn't fit in
So
that,
let's
but-
get to the paparazzi. All these folks showing up on your front lawn. Talk about it.
Well, in this weird, messed up sort of way, I grew up wanting to be like Britney Spears. Like I was convinced I was going to be discovered at the mall and taken to Broadway and play Annie.
Okay.
And so this was before, the cameras came and my name became a household name. So it's almost like be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden,
You don't know how it's going to show up.
Right. And so when my family was telling me, when you get back home, there's going to be people with news cameras up there, there's probably going to be a lot of them just, and I was just like, perfect. I was like, it's my time to get
showtime.
Oh, wow.
Right. I was like, I don't have to try so hard at the mall. They're literally at my house. And so I took it upon myself to try to get discovered for a while. And so when the paparazzi would be outside, I knew that 5:00 is live news time. So I was like, it's showtime. And so I would sneak out of my house and in my costume and bring a boom box and put it on the front lawn. I was like, 5:00, boom, press Whitney Houston. I'm every woman, and would do full on cartwheels and dance routines and look at me, someone take me to Broadway. And then I did my finish and the reporters would just come up to me. They're like, little girl, can you go play somewhere else? We're about to start a live news segment. And I was just like, did they just not see that cartwheel into a split? Hello.
Oh
my gosh.
I remember now developing this love-hate relationship with the paparazzi because eventually they were the same people there every time. So AJ Benza, you're there every day. I got to know the Long Island local news people. And so they would know me too. And they're like, can you go play somewhere else? We're trying to do our live segment. I was like, can you do your job somewhere else? This is my lawn. It's my house. Get out of here. And then I go up to them and oh my God, you're such a great reporter. Can I have your autograph? And then they'd write their autograph and I'd rip it up in front of their face.
Oh my
Your job
goodness.
sucks. And so it became this
So
weird,
you actually went out and confronted them
I
as a
did.
9-year-old
And
little girl.
They infiltrated our neighborhood too.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my friends, we knew all the back ways. We go get eggs and we go, how do you like your eggs? And egg them and throw eggs at the news vans and water balloons. And
That's anger.
there you go. That could be anger. But it was fun,
Yeah.
it was
Making a game of it.
Yeah. And so we kind of had that, at least the kids in the neighborhood, that's the relationship I kind of had with the paparazzi. But I do remember them just sometimes sitting out my window and just staring at them. They're so invasive. And I would just sit in my window as a 10-year-old with both middle fingers up and being like, well, they can't use this on TV.
Yeah, right.
And so stop coming to my house. Stop.
Yeah.
For what? I remember one time my aunt came to visit and the trash truck happened to be right around the corner. And so my aunt asked the trash guys hey, y'all mind driving this truck and blocking the view so I can get into my sister's house? And so they're like, yeah, of course. So she jumped on the back of a trash truck like a trash man.
Oh
and
my God.
They gave her a ride. They stopped in front of all the cameras. My aunt was able to come into the house without making it on the live news later. And it was just random scenes like that. We ordered a pizza. I went and paid for it. And they're like, oh, pizza at the Buttafuoco house. It's a pizza. We're hungry. We couldn't go out to dinner after that point because we were so known. And if we did go out, people would bark at us or people would yell at us or people would shout at us. And it was scary and terrifying. And so eventually we just had to kind of stay at home. And
How long did this thing go on for with the paparazzi?
Still happening. But the major paparazzi like that until Tanya's tragedy happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You're talking about that.
Because once the shooting happened and the cameras were there for that, then it became my dad wound up going on trial. And so they were there for a statutory rape. And so they were there for that. And so like they were always at our house.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So when I want to talk about your dad
and before that happens too, I also want to shout and y'all had a gate at your house. I remember we had this conversation.
That's what, I was thinking
of
that.
how lovely it was. She had a gate.
Oh, yeah.
So that was, we didn't have that. And so they were constantly
The
bringing our
Goldmans
they
dad
were
out.
on PCH, weren't they?
Yeah, so we lived we did live at a major intersection of Pacific Coast Highway and Monarch Bay Drive. So we had protesters, we had supporters on all four corners, but then we have a restaurant right across the street, which is now Salt Creek Grill, and that was an empty parking lot. So all the news vans were parking over there, satelliting, their stuff, picking up our conversations inside the house. If we wanted to have any conversation, we would have to go down on the beach. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't.
Yeah, because they were eavesdropping.
Yeah,
too. They were tapping our phone.
They were tapping in.
Then. They had their satellites to hear private conversations. Like media in the
Same
90s
thing.
was so exploitative and so ruthless.
Yeah.
Like it became so insane with that. And that's also my fear of exploitation for that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because literally neighbors, families, and friends were selling home videos for thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
We're coming in mic'd up for thousands of dollars. Rico, fuck Rico.
Oh my God.
I've never had a successful relationship because I am too afraid someone's going to pretend to fall in love with me to exploit me. Yeah. That's exactly what happened.
So Rico.
When you said it out loud, I said, that's validated.
Yep.
Sorry, Dr. Deb.
No.
You got a few more sessions, honey.
Good.
She's my therapist, and she was frustrated my inability to trust someone in such an intimate way like that.
And that took time for me to trust after that. So Rico was posing basically as news media, reporting news back to Mexico City. And was basically saying, Tanya, come live with me, yada, yada, yada. We built this great relationship, but then he ended up being a news reporter for Telemundo or something.
So they're trying every little trick in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got it.
Going through our mail, going through our
a lot of parallels here between us for sure.
Yeah. And it's something about that 90s exploitative current affair. Everyone wants to scoop, and they were paying a lot of money. So people's morals really came out.
Exactly.
People's characters really came out because there
really
were some friends that were offered and said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Mary Jo and Joey all the way, and so it's.
And you're you and I are both lucky in that way because a lot of Nicole's friends, they didn't come forward and, say that. But the people at the cemetery, the homes that outline or that back up the Nicole's cemetery where Nicole's buried, those families got tons of money to have news reporters coming in to film the funeral.
Yeah.
Very exploitive.
Wow.
Yeah. Invasive.
Very, very. And as a 10-year-old seeing that,
I could only imagine.
I just, this is how the world works. Yeah. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not participating in that. If I fall in love, someone's either going to cheat on me and then kill me or sexually exploit me in the media. Nah.
Yeah.
Don't touch me. I'm cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of underlying.
What's interesting is you kind of alternate between here's the paparazzi, I'll show off and do cartwheels to throwing eggs at them and hating on their guts.
Well, when they didn't discover me, I started hating.
Okay.
It's like, you're useless.
Yeah. I mean, to have both of you in the room at the same time talking about what it's like to be, in your case, a child as you as a young lady, with this high intense media where every little thing and even things that don't happen are invented. Mm-hmm. I mean, when I was working on the Heaven's Gate case, there was a party in the backyard, and then it came out that there was a party in the backyard, a birthday party for one of the kids, and the National Enquirer. So I don't normally buy the National Enquirer, but I bought it and I read the story. I was at the party. I know what happened. And they're talking about ghosts and flickering candle or some kind of BS story. And I thought that never happened. But the media was in that case. They were getting the kids in that neighborhood to talk about, what'd you see at the party? You know? And you know how kids are, they make stuff up.
Yeah.
Or
everything's sensationalized.
Right. But then people read that and that's what they believe. And now it's a snowball. And then all of a sudden my name, everybody knows. It's a big joke on everywhere. People are talking about it at school. People are talking about the restaurant. People are talking about it at the doctor's office, at my dance class. It was inescapable.
And I remember reading in the news that you were actually on the set of Saturday Night Live and Madonna was there. Can you share because we're talking about the
Madonna incident.
The Madonna incident.
I do not know about this.
Oh yeah,
girl.
Well, here we go.
Ooh,
go ahead.
Okay, let me fix my hair.
So basically, 92. Madonna was my queen. All right. This is the Immaculate Collection. I was voguing my 9-year-old life. I was 10 by this time, 4th grade. But living like Madonna is ultimate supreme, you know?
Right.
And so I was in the habit of watching Saturday Night Live by then because they had started parodying my dad. And so like we would watch it and like Danny DeVito is playing my dad. And we're like, look how funny that is, you know, in some weird way. But then they had promoted Madonna's going to be the musical guest in a few weeks. And I was like, this is my chance, you know? And so I was like, Dad, I know you could hook it up because things fall off the back of the truck with him, you know? And so like, my rational brain was, well, they talk about him. So I know he knows them. I'm sure he can hook me up with Madonna tickets, you know, something like that. And so my mother was adamant against it of like, are you kidding me? They make fun of us every week. You're going to send our child there? Absolutely not. But, you know, she was on a lot of pills and she was hurt. And my dad wanted to, you know, give me what I wanted. And so he hooked up tickets. And so we took a limousine. I like got my lace on. I was ready for Madonna.
Is this going to the concert or Saturday Night Live?
Taping.
And probably in New York, right?
In New York City.
Yeah, right.
So we took a limo, like it was a big thing. And I'm sitting in the audience and I think my Aunt Eileen was there, but I don't remember that, but she tells me she was, so I believe her. But for some reason, my dad wasn't sitting with me. I don't know if he was either backstage or what, but he wasn't there.
So you're by yourself right now?
With a friend and my aunt.
Okay.
And our limo driver.
And just real quickly to interject, you were at this point on really good terms with your dad.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I was daddy's girl for a very long time until the veil was lifted.
Okay. We'll get to that, but go ahead.
And so I'm in the audience and I don't know, it's a sketch show. I'm 10. I'm not understanding what's going on. I'm just like, where's Madonna? And so finally she came out at like the halfway mark and it was a very dark. It was very like cabaret, single spotlight. She had like a black turtleneck on, blonde, comes out. And I was like, it's queen. You know, I was so excited. This is freaking Madonna right here. Material girl. Madonna in the flesh, not a drag queen. Madonna.
She was really close to you, like 20 feet away.
20 feet away. It was a small audience. I was not.
It's small. It's a small studio.
And so before she starts singing, she comes out and we're like, yes, Madonna, oh my God. And then she like holds up a picture from behind her back and like holds it in the audience. And it was like 8x11, you know, printer paper, but I couldn't see what was on it because there was like a glare from the lights on it. And then all of a sudden I like focus on the picture and it's a picture of my dad's face. And I was just like, you know, of like, why is Madonna holding a picture of my dad? Not your dad, not this guy's dad, you know, my dad. Out of any dad on the planet, she's holding my dad's picture. How does Madonna know my dad? What's going on? And then all of a sudden she goes, fight the enemy, and just rips it into a million pieces. And my eyes get big. The audience just starts hooting, hollering, laughing. And I just remember
that is not funny.
And just being like, well, it was a bit that Sinead O'Connor had done a couple weeks ago with the Pope's picture.
Oh, that's right.
So they were trying to like parody that moment. But when you hear your ultimate idol call your dad the enemy, not an asshole, not a jerk, the enemy. And to have an entire room of people
laugh at it,
laugh and hoot and holler and agree. And I just remember sitting there and looking around and just seeing that. And just almost like it was slow motion or like frozen in time. And I just remember the thoughts in my brain of like, do they know I'm his kid? Do they know I'm right here? Mm-hmm. Does Madonna know I'm here? Daddy, what'd you do to Madonna? Like all these thoughts are going through my mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, would they still be laughing if they knew I was right here? And I just remember like being shocked and deflated and just like another one of those, like, this is my ultimate queen who just betrayed me and I didn't do anything wrong. And
you're 10 years old.
And I'm 10. And I think my aunt was like, oh, it's just a joke, honey. And I was just like, yeah, I know.
Not so funny.
And I just sat there and I've never liked Madonna since. Anytime her music comes on, I go, ugh.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
Apparently she's trash.
I totally relate to it.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean,
at 10.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was really
traumatizing.
Yeah.
Well,
otherwise.
yeah.
I think that was
it's like disappointing more so.
Disappointing, but I also think that was one of those defining moments of this thing is big. Mm-hmm. For Madonna to know my dad, not a drag queen Madonna at a brunch. This is the Madonna on Saturday Night Live with an audience of people who all feel that way. Mm-hmm. And that to me was the moment everyone on earth feels that way.
That's sad.
And that's even when I became under the microscope in my own mind more. And I needed to be even more perfect. And I needed to be the leader of the team and the lead of the school play. I can't just be in the play. I have to be the best at it, and that's when I really, because I saw how hated my father was. And I knew that I'm so much not that way. And I need to prove now to the world that this apple fell very far from that tree. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really when those themes really started for me in that life of everybody hates my family. Everybody hates my dad. And at that time, everybody hated my mom for staying with him and defending him. And so they were making fun of her. Oh. They were taping their face down, making fun of a gun violence victim, saying, I stand with my man on Saturday Night Live.
Oh my God.
Like,
see,
we wouldn't treat people like that now in media, but seeing that as a kid really fucked me up.
Yeah. And even today when I see things like that, because it's still out there. They still make fun of people, but it's like anytime, because I'm sensitive to that too, even today at 52 years old.
Well, I saw your reaction with Kim Kardashian on Saturday Night Live doing that bullshit and her, opening monologue. We still deal with it to this day.
Yeah.
That was recent too.
Yeah, that was a couple months ago.
That Kim Kardashian thing was real recent.
Yeah, yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
tacky.
And I had talked to you kind of behind the scenes, and that affects you.
Yeah.
What people forget is behind every statistic,
there's a family.
People.
Right.
And kids and people.
Yes. And I think too, growing up, I had a lot of those moments, unexpected, traumatic, that rattled my everything. Cause like, I'd go to the movie theater just to see a movie with my friends. We're going to see the Addams Family too, woohoo. And then there's a scene in that movie when they're exchanging serial killer cards. Yeah. And they go, I'll trade you Amy Fisher. And so I'm in the movie theater with my friends, and the person that almost murdered my mom is on the big screen now. And I go zing, and I'm 12 then. Mm-hmm. Or I'm watching an episode of Friends and they're trying to figure out what to name Phoebe's baby. And Joey goes, what do you name him? Joey. And they make, Joey Buttafuoco really ruined that name for us. Yeah. And it was like, and I was 15.
Oh, I so relate to this.
And so at every year and every stage of my life, a Buttafuoco joke will come out of the blue, or a Buttafuoco reference will come out of the blue. And for me, that just triggers, I got the whole notebook of mom shot in the face, dad in jail, paparazzi, news vans. And it just is, I've gotten better because I've done a lot of healing, but the PTSD chain would always get activated every time that would come. And so that's why I was so fearful and had so much PTSD too, because I never knew where it was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It could come from the media. It could come from a movie. It could come from, I was in college at UCSB. I'm taking a law class and they have this concept called the aesthetication of the real. And I'm reading this concept, and it's about when normal things blow up into big proportions. And then all of a sudden I'm reading my homework and I see my parents' picture. And so I had to go to my professor and say, hey, could you maybe use a different example? Because this is my family and I really don't want to talk about it in front of 500 students at UCSB today, And so it was just like, it's always kind of been a constant theme of my life. And I've always just walked around with the feeling I'm about to be punched in the face or the gut, And only recently have I taken control of my narrative and cleared out the shame and the guilt and stuff around it. We'll get to that, in a future episode.
Right.
But this moments that now that we're talking about, this early childhood, this constant, I don't know what angle this is coming from on every plane of existence, whether it's real life, school, work, or home, or media, even 10, 11, 12, 13, like it was always there.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here, to kind of put it into clinical terms, because I want to get to your relationship with your dad here next, but what we're seeing is that there's an acute trauma where you realize your mom's seriously hurt, you're being lied. That's the shock. But then there's this chronic, constant layered fallout that is to this day. Just a short time ago with Kim Kardashian and your thing, Tanya, and with your experience at UC Santa Barbara, where it just keeps kind of coming in waves, and it's like, can I just get a break from this stuff? Right. And that's how trauma works.
There's the answer. So
it's always there.
And because same thing with my little trauma which never made the newspaper, with having the heart surgery, which was I think the heart surgery was actually easier than learning about it.
I can imagine that.
You know what? And the emotional side of it is far worse than the physical side. because I was healed up in a summer. I did miss the summer at the beach, but I was healed physically. The doctors did a great job, but you get a slap on the back, and emotionally there's zero prep, zero training, zero insight, and you live with it for the rest of your life. And in my case, it lasted for decades, unresolved trauma. So, and it sounds like similar kind of parallels with your story. You get nailed with this stuff. And then this layered thing with Madonna doing her thing. I'm sure Madonna's a wonderful person, but I don't think, well, maybe she's not. I don't, maybe I'm not.
I've heard from a few people she's not.
Okay, whatever. Well,
She's a diva.
maybe she's dealing with trauma. We'll have her on and figure it out. But the thing is, she certainly owes you an apology. There's no question about
We'll
that.
never get it.
No.
Well,
I mean, and at this point, like owing apology, she was a bit, the writers wrote her a bit to do and she did it.
I get it. I get it.
Think I got an apology from Kim?
Yeah.
We'll never get it.
Yeah, that's probably true. But my point is that this is this chronic trauma, whether intended innocently or maliciously, there's this ongoing trauma that you have to deal with. When we talk about, the survival stage, we'll talk about how to deal with it. But right now where it's hurting, I think I get it. I think the audience should get it, that here's people behind the statistics, a totally innocent little 10-year-old girl in the audience, excited to see her idol come out on stage and trash your dad, and make you yourself feel like you're hated and a bad person. That's horrific. That's not cool.
Well, because I also thought, this is my dad, this is my bloodline. So if people am I like that? Is this me?
Is this in my DNA?
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
All those questions are going through your mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about your relationship with your dad.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
I currently do not talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a few years.
Okay.
But at this point in time, the dive stage, he was my hero. He was my number one. Life of the party. The dad that I knew was not the dad that was painted in the media. And so it was easy for me to not believe that because I'm like, y'all don't know. You don't know him. I know him. I'm here every day, and he's social. He's great. Like he is very charismatic, and that kind of thing. Now the work I've done looking back on it, he did me no favors, because even as I continued to grow, he either just threw money at me or, didn't do much to help me emotionally at all. And actually his actions just continued to fuck my world up more and more.
Okay.
And so, I think towards college is when I really started to wake up to being like, maybe he's not a good guy.
So tell us about that. I mean, we're talking about the dive stage. When did you have that awakening that, hey, my dad's had a double life, and maybe what I've seen is not the true dad? Before
I get to that, I think it's important to note when the first time he was in jail, he's been in 4 for my whole life. I remember the first time going to have to visit him. And my poor mother, who's already been enough, she schleps me and my brother there. And this was also one of those moments of, I think, like, nobody's on this guy's side, so I need to be kind of thing. As I'm waiting in the jail, waiting for him, I tried to smuggle my school picture because it was a few days before Christmas. And I tried to mail it to him earlier in the week. But I was told I'm not allowed to put stickers on the envelope because that's how drug dealers get drugs into jail. At 10 years old. That's how I'm learning how to get drugs into jail. They go on stickers and envelopes. They don't let that. And I was like, we'll see about that. And so I wrote him a letter and I loaded every sticker I had on it, like all of Elisa Frank, everything like that. I was like, I'm not putting drugs. Yeah, they'll know it's from me. Well, it got sent right back. Never got to him. I was like, damn it. And so I was determined to get him my school picture. And so we were going to visit. And I had my school picture in my pocket. I was going to smuggle it to him. But as I'm waiting for him to come out this like double door kind of a thing, on the other side of those double doors was like a special prisoner visiting unit. And on this side, I see 2 serial killers on either side that were in. He's about to take a drink. He stops. And they were prolific serial killers of the time because I recognized them from the news because they would talk about them. They would talk about my family. And then they talk about the other serial killer, one of which his name was Joel Rifkin. And at that time, he was a major serial killer. He killed like 17 prostitutes.
That name sounds familiar.
He was 91, 92. The cops found him they pulled him over for speeding and they found a bunch of prostitutes dead in his trunk. And it turns out he killed like 17 women.
Wow.
Him and his mom and my mom said hello in the waiting room. And so he's over here waiting for his prisoner over here. And there's another guy named Colin Ferguson who's over here. And he had shot up the Long Island Railroad in a mass shooting in 91 or 92. And this was before mass shooting. So it was like a big deal. And so I just remember going into like deep thought of like, my dad is in here with these guys. Like my dad didn't even do anything. He told me, my dad just told me that they were going to put him in jail anyway. And so he just said he was guilty. So he'd only go in for a few months. So he'd come out and put the responsibility on me that, I did this so I can watch you grow up. And so I felt guilty that he was even in there in the first place.
Oh, wow.
And now to see him like, I'm a very deep thinker. I always have been. I can, go down the rabbit hole and spin out really easy. And I always have. And so I just remember seeing these serial killers and being like, my dad's in here, like with these guys,
how
like
frightening,
terrifying. But then I remembered, I was like, my dad can kick both those asses. Like, he's a big guy. But then I would visualize, I was like, are they playing kickball together at recess? And are they swapping sandwiches at lunch? Like I just would go off into these worlds and like, what? And then my dad would send me presents, visiting. Or from handmade, like bartered with a pack of cigarettes, he'd send me like a cross made out of burgundy tube sock, like thread from a tube sock. Or I remember he sent me this like beautiful handkerchief that had this like adorable teddy bear with butterflies like airbrushed on in a meadow with my name in the clouds. And my mother got it framed and put it on my wall so I would think of my dad, blah, 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 blah. But all I remember thinking about was like a murderer made that. Like a rapist made that. Like someone that's capable of making something so beautiful and pretty can also do something bad enough to wind up in jail. Mm-hmm. And I remember that also messed with my brain of like, people aren't what they seem. Someone who's really nice can be a murderer, and someone who's a murderer is capable of making beautiful things. And I just remember being like, what is going on? I
can't imagine just being a small kid.
Yeah.
You see in the
never
jail,
telling anyone any of this.
I just want to recap this because this is genuinely mind blowing. Your dad walks out. Here's your dad. And on either side, you see people you recognize from the news for being mass murderers on either side.
Yeah.
And this is real life in person.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so then when he comes out and he, we say, I try to give him a hug and they yell at me because you're not allowed to touch over the border. And I had tried to like take my picture out of my pocket and like slide it over like a deal, with the bouncer at the club. Like, And my dad, because he always breaks the rules. So I was like, he'll take it. And he's like, oh no, honey, I can't have that. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, they search me. And I was like, what do you mean? Just put it in your pocket. He's like, no, they strip search me. Yeah. And I was like, what's that mean? So that's how I learned what a strip search was. And actually I said something about, they make you take all your clothes off and they, you have to, bend over and they check your butt. And I was like, who would want to hide things in their butt? And he was like, a lot of people.
A lot of people.
And so just, life lessons.
A lot of people.
How old are you when you're learning about this?
10.
Can you believe that?
4th, 5th grade.
I mean, as a 20-something-year-old, that, in our, where we are now, we get it. But it's like, wow, at 10 years old.
And just to recap.
But that made me feel, I'm never going to come and visit my dad again because it's degrading. He has to strip naked every time a visitor comes and do that whole process. So every time after that, I have visited him, I just pictured him, having to get butt naked and his butt shirt. And I just felt guilty that I had to put him through that, not even thinking, well, you put yourself in there, son, like I wasn't there, whatever. But I just want to recap real quick. You said your dad went to jail 4 times. I knew he went to jail. I didn't know he was. Yeah. Was this all after Amy Fisher? Yes.
Okay. So if you can just quickly recap what the 4 things were that he went to jail for.
So after Amy's plea bargain went through, they put my dad on some sort of, I don't know if it was a trial or what, some sort of court proceeding for a statutory rape, which he took a plea for. And so, but he said he didn't do it, right? But I'm taking a plea because the cops were threatening him that he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life, blah, blah, blah.
So that's number 1.
So that's number 1. He got out. He came to California, solicited a prostitute, got caught, violated his probation. So he went back in jail.
That's number 2.
College. Yeah, he stayed out of jail for a while until college. And he was, this was fun. I mean, I was home from winter break. and woken up by the SWAT team at 7:30 in the morning. So
it's like number
40
3.
people with full guns. And I was held captive for about 8 hours, not able to call my mom or call anybody while they searched our home and held me at gunpoint.
Oh my God.
And so that was number 3.
So this is college.
So what was that arrest for? What
Auto insurance fraud.
Auto insurance fraud.
Yeah.
So number 1 is statutory rape. Number 2 is violation and soliciting a prostitute.
Right.
Number 3 was auto insurance fraud. And then number 4.
The 4th time, it was another violation of probation because his wife at the time made an anonymous complaint that there was a weapon in the house, which you can't do if you're on probation.
So weapons violations.
Yeah, they came in, they found it, and he went back to jail.
So he's just not getting the lesson, apparently.
No.
Okay.
Never.
He's invincible.
Unfortunately.
Okay. And you know what? And if it's okay,
Sure.
you brought up 2 key terms a long time ago. Might have been the last episode. They were being a sociopath and narcissism.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Those are 2 big deals when we're talking about trauma.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just break it apart and then you can go on with your story. But it's important that we not only tell the story, but I don't know if the word's clinically, I want to discuss some of these key things people should learn in trauma recovery because these come up all the time. So let's start with narcissism. You know, what it is. I can explain it. One of you probably can do a better job. What it is and how you kind of saw that. When people aren't here to defend themselves, I don't want to beat up on people that aren't here to defend themselves. But let's talk about what narcissism is.
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like you're pretty well versed in this. Why don't you go for it?
Sure. I mean, I didn't understand that's what necessarily was one of my father's issues until recently, because now I'm in a master's degree for psychology. So I'm just starting to learn the terms for things that I've experienced already. So I'm going, oh, that's what that is,
right?
A lot. But, my father is incapable of feeling. He's told me that to my face. He goes, I'm sorry, Jessie, I just don't feel. And so I find it to be an interesting thing. If someone's incapable of feeling empathy or feeling like how another person would feel, it allows them to make choices, good or bad, because they don't care. They don't understand how devastating it makes someone feel when you do X, Y, or Z. And so I would beg my dad, can you please think of me before you make these kinds of choices? Can you think of me before you go on celebrity boxing? Can you think of me before you do this? Can you think of me before you do a sex tape? Can you think of me before you? And he did, but not for very long in terms of, okay, that's great, but that's not paying my bills. And to an extent, I understand when you become this entity, when you are a normal person, not an actor, not someone famous before, and now this is all you are, you can't work a normal job. You can't participate in normal society. And so there's no handbook on how to deal with infamy.
Right.
And so for him, I mean, I can only imagine, the challenges. Granted, he brought it on himself, but the challenges of being Joey Buttafuoco, I don't know. I know what it's like to be Jessie Buttafuoco, but in terms of providing for a family and keeping a roof over people's heads and just even that normal kind of thing, it's extremely hard for him to do. And I understand that. So he felt the need to, well, y'all made me this way, so you're going to get it. And so had no problem doing celebrity boxing or a sex tape or X, Y, and Z to maintain his fame, because in some sort of way that would bring small chunks of cash here and there to be able to put me to college or keep a roof over my head.
Right. And also kind of an addiction to adoration.
Absolutely. And that's that grandiosity of narcissism.
Yeah.
And they don't take responsibility for anything.
Zero.
It's always everybody else's fault.
It's always
you made me do this.
fault.
You made me do this. Yeah. No self-responsibility.
Right. And I'm only talking from my opinions and my perspective, but I kind of see some parallels between that and OJ.
Yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't do it.
No,
yeah.
She made me do it if I did do it. I mean, come on.
Right.
That's admission right there.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if his narcissism is there, but I think for him, and I'm obviously not here to diagnose anybody or say anything like that. But I've noticed traits of antisocial personality disorder.
That's dangerous.
Probably the biggest one with him. Because of his inability.
And let's break that down
feel.
because right on the bookshelf behind you is the DSM-5 manual. I mean, we're not going to crack it open and have a psychology lesson.
That to me right there is PTSD.
We'll hide it.
Hide it.
You got to manage those triggers, Tanya. You got to handle those triggers better. But no, I'm just teasing. You handle the triggers any way you want. Okay, but antisocial personality disorder is the formal name. The informal name is being a sociopath. Right. And a sociopath is a very dangerous, very often misunderstood, complex. I don't know if that, it is what it is. Why don't you share, and why don't you both share what a sociopath is? And it's also important to know there's a relationship between being a sociopath and a narcissist.
Oh, yeah.
All sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths.
So every time, go ahead.
I was going to, let's say it all together, class. So let's talk about sociopaths.
Yeah. Every time the word sociopath comes up, I think of Jeffrey Dahmer for some reason. I remember watching him on the news like 2020 or something like that back in the day. And I just remember they used the word sociopath. This is before school, college, and all of that. And I just remember looking at this man and they used the word sociopath. And that for some reason, that name, every time I hear that term, I think of Jeffrey Dahmer. And also, I forgot what I was going to say, but that's it. Oh, a great book is called The Sociopath Next Door.
Oh, Martha Stout, PhD out of Harvard.
It's a great book.
Well,
it's a great book.
On top of that, I'll plug my mother's book, which is called Getting It Through My Thick Skull, Why I Stayed, What Happened, and What Millions of People Involved with Sociopaths Need to Know.
Wow.
Being married to one and being raised by one are two different experiences.
Yeah.
I got to read that.
Wow.
That's.
I have a copy. I'll leave it here for the office.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Say the title again. So
Getting It Through My Thick Skull. Because she's funny like that.
Yeah, getting it through.
And also getting it through. Why I Stayed, What Happened, or something like that, and What Millions of Sociopaths Need to Know.
Getting It Through My Thick Skull.
Thick Skull.
Yeah, by Mary Jo, named after Mary and Joseph.
Mary Joseph.
Buttafuoco.
MJ.
Okay.
Yes. That's so cute.
Okay, so we would recommend everybody get that book. And you're right, Tanya. The Sociopath Next Door is a crazy great book.
It's also like when I was reading it, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, that's my neighbor.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God.
Martha Stott was outside my window looking in at my life. She's really dialed in on understanding this. And she explains it so well.
Yeah, it's a dynamic read.
Yeah, because there are these people, according to Martha Stout, 1 out of 24 people is a sociopath. Antisocial personality disorder.
And that doesn't mean you're violent.
Oh, no.
Sociopathy, that's not psychopathy necessarily. It's, it's interesting because you think anti-personality or antisocial personality disorder, but like a person like my father is so personable.
It's detachment.
Oh, charm is
charm. So when you hear the term, you think they're not good at being people.
Yeah.
And it's like
they're charming. They're charismatic.
They're very charming. That's why I'm not one. I'm not that charming. But no, it's seriously, sociopaths are remarkably charming.
I struggled for a while thinking that I was, but I have now come to realize that I have way too much empathy and feeling. That I can't.
I can tell.
Yeah, me too.
Well, and disclaimer: neither Tanya and I are licensed therapists. We never pretended to be. That's not what our thing. I'm a researcher. Tanya's an advocate, and Tanya has a degree in mental health issues. Yeah, exactly. I'm more of a researcher, but I work in a field where I see a lot of disasters, and I become fascinated with the people behind the statistics and trying to, not just understand it, but also try and find some solutions for going forward. That's why we host this whole podcast. And wow, we're just so privileged to have you here. So anything else you want to say about the whole sociopath narcissistic thing before we move on to the rest of your story within the dive stage?
Not really, because this is about my story, not his.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess being raised by someone like that is extremely challenging.
Yeah.
And I was taking an ethics class in my master's degree program, and I wasn't doing that well. I still got an A, but I would get a lot of the practice questions wrong because my dad is very Robin Hood. Steal from the rich, give to the poor, and it's okay. Things fall out the back of the truck, so like my bar of like what's right and wrong.
It didn't
really
exist. It didn't exist.
And so when they pose these ethical questions in class, I'd be like, yeah, but he's trying, I'd get them wrong all the time. And they're like, no, Jessica, you can't do that.
I hated vignettes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Hated vignettes.
Yeah.
Hated them.
Okay.
But that makes sense.
Yeah, but I was like, I'm sorry, I was raised by a narcissistic sociopath. I'm trying the best I can.
Well, yeah. And I mean,
That's funny.
talk about a crazy 10-year-old memory.
My
My memory is a
God.
10-year-old going to Disneyland and the beach, and yours are seeing
Going to
dad
jail.
with
Mine
two
is
serial
right
colors on
here.
either side.
Right, Dad.
Yeah, and yours
Right.
is playing beach blanket bingo in your bikinis on the beach, right here.
Mine was going to the Bronx Zoo on a school field trip that my dad was supposed to chaperone, but he got lost. And so I just stayed at the front entrance for 3 hours waiting for him. And then my teacher finally convinced me to go on the field trip. And then I see my dad with a circle of people signing autographs by the monkey cage. And I'm like, so you've been enjoying the animals this whole time? I've been literally
Waiting for
freaking
you.
out, almost panic attack, thinking you're dead because you're not here when you should be, stuff like
So it sounds, I mean, you're right. We don't want to dwell on your dad too much, but your dad really seemed to embrace this quasi celebrity out of this whole thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I think he had dreams of that, before this happened. And like baby Jessie, the cameras are here. Let's use this, he was a grown ass man that decided to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
You were playing it as a game, like, hi, here. And
Right.
he's like taking it to a whole other level.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the whole Amy Fisher Day, Nicole Brown Simpson's birthday, coincidentally, was only the start of kind of layered trauma because your dad's behavior was, he went to jail 4 times or whatever that was all about. Well, I want to get to survival stage. We'll do that in a minute. Anything else you want to share about just the really, the whole world's kind of coming down, the whole mess, any parts of the story you really want to share?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that I never coped with any of it. I just kept going and shutting it down and putting a smile on my face and trying to achieve and just go, sweeping it under the rug my entire life. Until, and then once, on top of this, I started getting into drinking. I started doing drugs.
Well,
all that kind of stuff.
What age?
13.
Wow.
Young, because I was so afraid, and my insides were vibrating and just at such a level that a wine cooler, I could breathe.
Take a break from
It just took my fever out a little bit.
Okay.
I wasn't wasted because I was so traumatized that a couple beers just made me able to walk in a straight line, calm down a little bit. And so, obviously I knew it was wrong. But I liked it. It made me happy, and I was so not happy. And so when I started, just stealing a couple beers at the block party, but I was still achieving highly achieving. But then I started this alcoholic in me started growing and becoming manageable in a way to where it made me happy. And once I got to high school, I started smoking pot a little bit more. I worked my way up the social ladder. I was the new kid because I had moved from New York to California. So then I also had real people problems aside from Buttafuoco. My parents got divorced. I had to move, like normal people stuff. But working my way up that social ladder, and then I started drinking, finding the parties, and that was fun. Like I still have fun, but I was never the one drinking and crying in the corner. Like I was the one getting everyone riled up and having a good time. And I continued to be that way and play hard, or work hard and play harder. And so I was still getting A's in school. A's and my 4 years at UCSB was a shit show. I think my mom had gone to rehab by then. Maybe she did it the year before. It was like Amy Fisher was getting out of jail. My dad went back to it was just like my parents got divorced. Like there was so many stressful moments, still getting A's, still getting B's, raging cocaine addict by that point. And I'm so thankful now, A, that I'm over that, but B, like there was not fentanyl back then. Like if there was anything in the coke, it was baking soda and it made my head hurt. It wasn't
thank God what it is today. Yeah,
Well,
thank God.
But and I was throwing away my God-given gifts. Like I have a pretty good voice and singing, and I was in the gospel choir, and I'd be singing these solos to God, you know, but I'd be doing 18 lines of Coke before I got there. I'm like, I'm high as fuck. Let's go. And, you know, it was just this beast that kept getting out of control. But at the same time, I wanted to appear perfect on paper. And so I was the president of Students Teaching Alcohol and Other Drug Responsibility. And I would be giving presentations to the fraternities on how to drink moderately and not binge drink. But then like 3 hours later, I'd be at the frat house doing keg stands, you know? And so it was like, I started becoming this double
personality.
Yeah. And it was I wasn't able to align with my morals. My choices were, and I had too much unprocessed trauma to where the only coping tool I had was to drink and get high and do drugs.
So you kind of hit a lot of the biggies, you know, the drinking, the drugs, the pot, the cocaine, that could have gone.
I also got some eating disorders, old eating disorders up in there. I fluctuate between anorexia periods and binge eating disorders.
Okay. So eating disorders.
It's all trauma.
It's all trauma.
Every adverse childhood experience I have.
Yeah. It's all trauma.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean this affectionately, but it's really wonderful you're alive and here.
Yeah.
Honestly, me too. Because there was a period of time where I was praying to God to take myself off this planet, and I was probably weeks away from killing myself.
Okay, so suicide ideology is going on.
Because eventually the fun stopped, and I was 34, just drinking Pinot Grigio in a Starbucks coffee cup starting at 10 a.m. I'm teaching classes drunk. I'm smoking pot all day, smoking all the cigarettes. I'd convinced my psychologist I needed the highest dose of Adderall because I wanted to be skinny. You know, it was just like I was freaking buzzing. Like if I could describe my head, I was a tornado of just an automatic negative thoughts. Like, you're fat, you're ugly, kill yourself, you're worthless, you try. You know, it was just so loud. I call them the voices in my head. I call them the Real Housewives of my head because they're just a bunch of bitches that talk shit. You don't want good things for me. I have learned they call it externalizing the problem. I have learned to recognize that thought pattern as my trauma. Those bitches pop up when I'm scared, I'm nervous, or, you know, something's going on. And I need to just say, girl, for a while they sounded like me. So I thought they were me. So I believed them. Now, when those thoughts come up, I visualize all those hoes at brunch just clank, 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 drunk. And I'm like, okay, ladies, go back to brunch. I don't need you today. I don't care if you think I'm fat and ugly. You know, it's like those kind of like,
oh my God,
where the thought patterns come from and what they're doing. And I'm able to share.
You know,
I told you she'd be a great guest.
Oh yeah. You delivered on that one, Tanya. For sure. You know,
So we're still in the dive though. That helped me thrive, the Real Housewives. But you know, I was really, honestly, depression. This is when it finally hit me. I didn't understand what it was. All I just knew, I was crying a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was, I have in the DSM, Diagnostical Statistical Manual. I had every symptom of major depression disorder. I lost 30 pounds. My cognition went. So like I would read things, they'd be incorrect. Like I'd read a billboard with giant letters that said need money. And I'd read it as like feed honey. And I'm like, that's weird. Why is it a question? You know? And I'm like, oh, it doesn't say feed honey. It says need money. Like my brain actually like changed.
The neurology is a big deal.
I couldn't
It's
formulate.
the stress.
Like, you can hear me. I can talk. I'm pretty eloquent. I couldn't even formulate words at like full sentence. Like I was deteriorating physically. My nails were concaving in from dehydration. So like I didn't drink water. All I drank was Pinot Grigio and coffee. Barely eating any food. Maybe some fruit snacks every 3 days. And just complete. Like I couldn't button things. I'm pretty artistic. I'm hands on. Like I couldn't grip a pencil anymore. Emotionally wrecked. I mean, I just, I was ready to die. I was praying to God, please don't let me wake up in the morning for a month at least, and didn't have the guts to kill myself just because I couldn't do that to my mom. But if I didn't wake up, I would have been like, cool, I'm done, And spiritually just busted.
Vacant.
Just only praying to God to stop. I'm like, I'm sorry, I fucked everything up. Like I really felt I was hopeless. I didn't think I have a purpose on this life, on this earth. I I just really didn't think there was anything more for me. I think, well, I tried, sucked it all up. Maybe I'll come back as a cat and try again or something. I don't know. I just was ready to leave this planet.
You were exhausted.
I was tired.
And you didn't know how to get out.
I didn't.
So it's like continue the self-destruction.
I didn't. And the thing is, I didn't tell anybody. I kept everything to myself because I wasn't fine. And I couldn't pretend anymore. I couldn't put that happy face on. So I just stopped going out with my friends and I stopped meeting up with my family because I couldn't fake it any longer. I just deteriorated watching, Law and Order episodes.
You isolated.
Yeah. And it was cockroaches in my apartment. Like it was bad.
Oh,
What's fascinating about what you're saying, Jessie, is that on one hand, you've like checked all the boxes throughout the whole DSM manual. And let me pause for the audience. The DSM manual, and it is literally on the shelf behind your head. Sorry about the trauma.
It's all good.
But it's the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual for the psychology profession. And it actually goes through all these various disorders. And I've listened to your list, I can't think of one you've left off the list.
Yeah.
There may be some, but you're going through this
9 criteria, and I'm pretty sure I have.
Yeah. I think that sounds
eating
right.
disorders, all of it.
The point is, you're kind of, it's kind of a dumpster fire of a life on one hand. But what's intriguing, it sounds like you're functioning to the outside world. You're kind of functioning normally.
Everyone I meet, wow, really?
You didn't know we didn't know you were going through.
Right.
Yeah. But what's so valuable to your story is valuable on a lot of levels, but on this component is that people can see that on the outside things can look fine and really functioning well.
That's important.
And you got all your stuff together and everything, but behind it, you're literally checking every box out of the DSM manual.
Yeah.
That's
for depression,
fascinating.
That's
for
profound.
PTSD, for eating disorders. Because also, I didn't realize that I had complex extreme PTSD to where a doorbell would send me to a level 100 fear that I'd hide under a table.
Right.
As a grown ass woman.
Right.
Right. I still get helicopters PTSD hovering over.
Yes. And so I'm dealing with the triggers more. I'm better. But, a few years ago, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it just, like you said, I was tired. I was exhausted. I can't do this anymore. It's just.
I'm hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
But I think what you said, Randy, a perfect depiction, because so many people think that the person who's depressed or mentally ill is the homeless guy standing on the corner with his tongue on a light post. You know what I mean? And it's not. It's people like me. It's people like you. Maybe you too at certain times. And, maybe Mel, our producer, who knows? But it's like all of us have something.
Right.
And you wouldn't even think, people would go, you were depressed? You were suicidal like you? And I'm like, it's not the lonely person sitting in the corner anymore, even though that still exists. But it's people who are out in the public eye, who are sports figures, who are, sportscasters or news people,
or
right?
Comedians,
Jim Carrey, everybody. Yeah. So it's the normal people who put on the facade. Yeah. I'm fine. And we know what that stands for.
Yeah.
But it's not, so be aware. And I think my mom saw something in me because I wasn't never diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she noticed that my highs were really high and my lows were really low. And she always knew I battled with some sort of depression, but we didn't know how. Like, what do we do? Where do we go?
Right.
Also, you experienced a lot of loss before.
A lot of loss before Nicole.
Oh my gosh.
And so,
So, and thank you for saying that, because so many people think that I became suicidal because of Nicole.
Right.
And it wasn't. It was just unresolved grief. So that's our message in this podcast, where it's like, face your trauma as you're going through it. We have enough tools in our toolbox now on the internet, social media, where it's like, walk through the chaos, walk through that tornado as you're going through it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it happened to you 30 years later, happened to me 10 years after, so it shows up and you never know when it's going to show up.
And that's why I'm so blessed to be alive now and to be able to do that, because what you just talked about is like my mission in life now, of like, I can't keep my story to myself anymore.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have someone like me in the media that I could look up to that say, oh, that's what they're going through. This is what I can do. Like, I'm going to be that person for the next generation.
Awesome.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's,
that's
next
beautiful.
episode.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Yeah. The next episode is getting to survival.
Right.
Because right now you're dived. You've been through the list. You're at this point depression.
Right now I'm in my apartment, almost dead, drowning myself in booze, weed, Adderall,
cockroaches
not cocaine anymore, cockroaches, Raid.
Yeah. And then the cherry on top of both of you. I mean, I went through my thing, zero media, as in zero. But you guys, you had the media like crazy. And then you got Madonna, your idol, putting the cherry on top with your trauma, with you 20 feet away, mocking you and your family and your dad in front of the whole world. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of special. Mm-hmm. I mean, in air quotes, that you went through that humiliation. The
public shame.
Yeah.
It's a beast.
Yeah. Let's talk about, before we wrap this up, let's talk about the public shame.
It's a topic that's not very researched much because I'm in school now and I've been doing some research projects because I want to focus on media psychology, the impact of public shame and infamy. The research isn't there. So that's also what's motivating me to get a doctorate degree and do all this stuff, because I'm going to be the person that put the research down there.
That's
so we can
beautiful.
start making some psychological safety measures in our media and our true crime productions. Because on top of all that, every time, and much like you, Tanya, I've been asked to participate in a ton of programs, ABC 2020, Snapped, Scared Straight, all these different programs throughout the years want my interview. And they say, well, if you don't participate, we're going to do it anyway. So you might as well put your 2 cents in. And so it's like, okay. But I have never received psychological support for any of that. They never put me with a psychologist. They never offered me sessions after my interview. And when they interview me, I'm getting re-traumatized. I'm crying. You know what I mean? It's like, it's hard. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy.
And I'm in the middle of saying, and then my mother's face got blown off and they're, can you actually say that again? Maybe cry this time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, or can you hold the helicopter? Can you say that again?
See, I'm telling you, the media is your best friend, but it's your worst enemy. They are they can be, not all the time, but they can be so incredibly insensitive, and that infuriates me.
And not trauma.
You can see it. Like
it does. And so my mission is I'm going to
it.
become a consultant. I'm going to make all these productions, hire my ass so I could be a victim liaison and say, you don't have to deal with that. This is how you could be more trauma informed.
That's awesome.
These are the questions you might be able to ask to get a better response from these people.
Perfect.
Because I watch these programs, right? And I identify with the people they're interviewing. I know what it's like to be in that hot seat.
Yeah.
And I look at it of like, they are just further traumatizing these people and everyone's making money with them.
Yep.
They're spending money on mental health help after, or booze or drugs, or, it's like, So I think that's also a big component to this, and a big reason.
That's huge.
I just want to make some changes in this industry, and it's not going to happen until the research is there, and the research isn't there yet.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I did an ID. I think it was it was IDTV
ID
or something.
Is the worst.
Oh my God. They had me read Nicole's diaries.
Yeah.
And I was like, where did you find these? But they were all public. They're all on Google Images. And I was bawling. And if I had somebody like you, consultant, coach, somebody like before, during, and after. They brought me down to the beach overlooking, this beach. And I was like, I cried and walked away. So that is a huge need. I mean, I get choked up because if I had somebody like you, that would have been a lot easier, because that was really hard.
Right.
That was probably the hardest interview I had ever done.
I believe it. And that's so fucked up. And that's what makes me angry too, because I don't even think these producers are thinking like that.
Yeah, no, they don't.
No, they don't give a shit.
They don't.
And that's the thing. Like, y'all need to give a shit.
Yeah.
You are just furthering people's pain here.
Yeah.
And y'all are making a lot of money. I was #1 in the ratings twice.
Yeah. Girl.
Yeah. And it's like, And so I think it's just, something needs to change.
That would be awesome.
With that.
Be the change. You're the change. Be the change.
Be the change.
I got to say, from my perspective, because I've worked on a lot of cases, World Trade Center to, Heaven's Gate and Bikini Atoll nuclear weapons test sites and John Benet Ramsey. I'm working behind the scenes. I'm quite content being behind the scenes. I think it's cool that I'm kind of now, talking about more publicly. I've literally had at least 100 phone calls from TV production companies. And we're talking big channels. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to get into the, drama of all that. And I've had 3 sizzle reels. where I say, I'm happy to talk about it, but I talk about it respectfully.
Yes.
I'm never going to talk about some of the stuff your dad shared with me. Never have. Even with you, because that's what he told me. And if he told you, he told you, but I just respect, when I make a promise, I keep it. And they wanted, what I'm getting at, they wanted to sensationalize everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to go through a murder scene. They used my house, which was actually next door to the Real Housewives of the OC, the first episode. So I come from that neighborhood. Yeah, that's another weird tangent. But my point is that I watched this as a reel after telling them, don't sensationalize that. That's not my style. It's not my thing. And they superimposed blood all over the furniture. And I'm looking at this going,
no way.
And if I mention the network, you'd just fall over because it's a big, quote, respected network.
Wow.
Netflix.
Actually, it doesn't. But
that's horrible.
But my point is that that's how they make money. I understand we want to make money, but we can make money in a classy, dignified way, or we make money in a cheesy, sketchy way.
And I think we're starting to see that turn now in media.
Yeah.
Where we're not as exploitative as we once were and as sensationalized. It's not there yet, but I think we're starting to get a little more.
I hope you're right. I hope you're a big part of that research and that solution, because the media affects a lot of people,
every day.
That imitate this stuff going on. And so finally a producer came to me from New York, and they seemed to really get it. I was out in New York and we had dinner, and they filmed a thing it's a little 4-piece documentary, and you watch it and it's like they got it right because they deal with it respectfully. We covered Jeffrey Dahmer. We covered where Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, and I worked on the Flight 93 crash site. There was a fourth one. Oh, the Pennsylvania shooting, the mass shooting at
Parkland.
It's not coming to my mind. I'm having a senior moment. Anyway, my point is they handled it nice. They not nicely. That's not the right word. Respectfully. And I
think the viewers recognize that. Audiences recognize.
I think they're starting to. I still think that there's so much cotton candy media out there that activates the parts of the brain that get high ratings and all of that. But it's kind of like the tobacco companies buying out all our food producers and jacking everything with sugar and salt,
right?
For addiction. That's what, and it's kind of brain candy. They're taking
it's a drug. People's
stories, which are very tragic, very messed up, what you both have been through, what we've all been through, traumas, and they exploit it, and they just They take a trauma that should be handled in a dignified way, and they jack it on sugar and salt and cocaine and any other white powder you can find to make it addictive, so that they can, boost their bank accounts.
Exactly.
I'm all for boosting bank accounts, but there's also a right way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm so fascinated genuinely with your area of research. We talked about it before the show, about your college plans. We got more to talk about off the camera. And I got some professors that are crazy smart. I'm anxious to introduce you to her.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
All
Let's
that.
do it.
But, changing the media's way of handling this, I've seen it enough. We've all seen it. That's something that really we can make some noise about and hopefully see that happen.
I hope so. Yeah, that would be great. Another thing with media, you've done this, I'm sure, where it's like they keep you there for 6 hours and they only do like 2 minutes. And it's only the 2 minutes that you like, why'd you put that in with it?
Right.
I've been there for 6 hours crying, this, like you said, this is hard. You're re-traumatizing yourself every single time. So I can't wait you need to do this.
I'll never forget. Yeah. I did a big, I won't say the network either, but it rhymes with the first 3 letters of the alphabet. And I went into the hair and makeup room, because they get you all dolled up. And I was looking good, girl. She had lashes. She had the beauty pageant hair. I was like, woohoo. And I get down, and the main producer of this segment that I was working with for about a year on this thing, he goes, ooh, can we make her less pretty? We need her to be able to be relatable. We need her to be relatable. Can we make her less pretty? And they made me go in the hair and makeup chair, take off my makeup, and then just look like a normal person.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I should have said, fuck you.
I would have looked this way
telling my story.
So
I didn't have that. I didn't have that yet.
That confidence
yet. Newly kind of sober, which we'll get to episode 16. But it was just like, it's
They
even that we need her to look relatable. Don't put so much makeup on her. Like,
they're so abusive. I remember I flew to New York to be on Meredith Vieira, and I'll mention it because I don't give a shit. And I flew on this.
That's the point too. They scare you into submission.
Yeah.
So why can't we name these networks? Do better, people. Do better, Meredith.
I really don't care. I talked to her producer numerous times. I said, these are my boundaries. I said, I will not talk to the kids or talk about the kids, and I will not be on the same platform with any of the Goldmans or any jurors or whatever. I said, I am here to talk about mental health. That's it. So I flew to New York with the stomach flu from the night before, sick as a dog. Spent the night overnight, go to whatever building she is, like the Rainbow Room or whatever. And, or not, that's a restaurant, but anyway, go there.
Sweet 16.
Really? Yeah. The producer comes in and sits down and he goes, okay, so this is how it's going to go. He says, first, we're going to have Kim Goldman on.
No.
And then we're going to bring in one of the jurors.
Literally everything he said.
Yeah. And then he says, then we'll bring you on because we want that reaction. And I just said, you know what? I said, I'm going home. I'm leaving.
Did you?
Yeah, I left. I literally spent overnight, went to the green room.
Yeah.
And I took the next flight home. I was like, no, I told you I'm not going to talk about the kids. I don't want the Goldmans in the same room as me. And I don't want any of the jurors.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I've had to do that too. I was like, if you pull my dad out of door number 3 while I'm out there, it's going to be a problem.
He's got to go.
You know, and luckily that never happened. But I'm proud of you for sticking to your gun.
And my mom, I told my mom and she goes, are you really leaving? And I said, yeah. I said, I respect Sydney and Justin enough that I am not going to do this. I told them my boundaries and they violated it.
Well, they're trying.
And I never got a phone call from any of the producers or Meredith herself.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so
that's
rude.
They're trying to turn it into the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I could have made a ton of money selling info and pictures and stories. Zero. I just worked on a very high profile case extraordinarily. And they said, well, how can we trust you? I said, well, look at the case I worked on. Have you seen any of my photos ever show up anywhere ever? No, zero. So you can make plenty of money in a dignified way.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not trying to pretend I'm Mother Teresa. I'm not, but give me a break. This is really shabby stuff that goes down with the media.
Yeah, it is.
But there's good media. There's
very good media.
There's some good.
And there's people making good media now that are trauma informed, that are hiring consultants to help them with sensitive topics and things like that, which is great. But unfortunately, the big ones are not.
You're the perfect person to do that.
Perfect.
I mean, I see that as just being so huge.
Because I've never even heard somebody when we were doing the interview for your show, for your pilot, I was like, I never even heard of anything like that.
Right.
It's desperately needed.
It's so needed.
Yeah.
So needed.
Yeah. So media, we love you. Some of you are cool. Some of you are not. But we're going to, their help is on the way.
I love hate. People that you need to get your message out. So
I know.
Yeah.
So, well, Meredith won't ever invite me back, and I would never go. So, but other people, but you know what? Like I said earlier, like media can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy.
Well, I did a segment with 2020. Martin Bashar was the reporter. He's the guy that told
me that I needed to be less pretty.
Oh, is he the guy?
He was the one. Not he, but the producers.
One of the producers from my 2020 Growing Up Buttafuoco special.
Oh, is that right?
Wow.
Because I narrated to the camera. I was the first person to actually talk to the camera, like a YouTuber or something like that. And I narrated the story.
Yeah.
And so that's when I came out looking fly, and they were
But to be fair to the media, I got a call from 2020. We filmed at the Ritz-Carlton right down the street, and I invited Denise. She came on, and it was a very good, respectful. It tells a story, but without the cotton candy, Jerry Springer, throw furniture, trauma, nonsense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. Thumbs down on that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the fact that we're sitting here hour after hour. And I realize it's time for a break.
Yeah, I got to pee. I got to pee and I need a Diet Coke.
So we'll end this segment with the need to all visit the executive washrooms.
Yes.
But you get to tell your full story without the little 4.5 minute clip.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I love how y'all ask questions. And I've mentioned this before. you ask the questions that incite some just like deep stuff. I don't even know how to like articulate it, but you're asking questions that aren't asked in major productions like this, and things like this.
You're right. And you know why we do it? We do it on purpose. And I'll tell you why. You heal, I heal, Tanya heals.
Everybody
heals. The audience heals as we really explore this rather than slapping Band-Aids on and pretending we're okay.
Yeah, we go deep.
That's why we do it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so post-traumatic thriving, where we learn to dive, survive, or thrive.
It's up to yours.
You guys are so bad. You decide. 2 words, Tanya. Say it.
The choice is yours.
All right.
It's up to you.
Over and out.
Oh, it's up to you? Is it up to you?
I don't know now.
It's up to you, right?
The choice is yours.
So I got it right.
Okay.
See
you later.
Thanks for supporting our podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on your favorite social media. For books, merchandise, or to donate, visit CoreIQ.com. Post-Traumatic Thriving is produced by CoreIQ, a nonprofit with a mission to teach the life skills we all need but are not taught in school. CoreIQ and the Post-Traumatic Thriving podcast are for informational purposes only and do not provide medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your licensed medical and mental health care providers.